Not seen
You're doing the way the Mexicans do it.
like Shark Tank out there. What sewer and water master plan for the west side?
Right.
They had that delivered to them.
Well,
A bunch of teachers. I don't. 80 pages.
is that what it is?
We got to work through this.
You know that guy just walked in. We'll call the meeting to order for the Wicomico County Council Legislative Session 2026-08 for April 21st, 2026. We first have on the agenda the invocation by Reverend Dr. Larry Dunlop Jr. with the Cross Point Church. Morning, Reverend.
Morning. You bow your heads and let us pray. We give thanks to you, O God, for the gift of this day. We give thanks to you for these who have elected to serve the citizens of Wicomico County. We pray that you would bestow upon them a spirit of humility and service. We pray for the many needs of our county today. We pray for those who are unsheltered and vulnerable. We pray for those who are undocumented and fearful. We pray for veterans whose service to our country has left them stressful and filled with trauma. We pray for those who are poor and hungry. We pray for those who are addicted and hopeless. We pray for those who are suffering with sickness and disease and lack adequate coverage to receive the care they need. We pray that you would help us all to work towards the day when no one in our county would be vulnerable or fearful or trauma-filled or hungry or hopeless or suffering without care. We pray for school teachers today who spend more time acting as social workers rather than teaching. We pray for first responders who we now ask to do far more than their jobs ever used to require. We pray for your blessing, O God, upon every resident of Wicomico County, from the babies that will be born today to the elderly whose days are waning. May today be a day of peace, safety across our county, across our state, and across our nation. I lift these petitions to God in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend Dunlop. Those that like to stand and join us in the Lord's Prayer, in the pledge of allegiance, please do. Of course,
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Entertain a motion from council to approve the consent agenda. Second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Consent agenda passes. Mrs. Hurley, with this additional resolution, do we need a vote currently right now to add it to the agenda, or is it already in there?
No, and I'll make the announcement just so the public is fully aware once we get through those proclamations.
Okay, thank you. First, we have a proclamation to recognize National Child Abuse Prevention Month. We do have Carly Rue and Chris Bozick and Ellen Schwinn, I believe, representatives from Life Crisis. And we have representatives from the Child Advocacy Center, presented by our Vice President. Do we have the Madam State's Attorney?
Yes.
Very good.
Hello, Council President, how are you?
Good, pleasure to have you here.
It's a pleasure to have you have us.
Very nice.
So we have here today many members, staff members of the Child Advocacy Center, an organization of which I was proud to have grown up in as a prosecutor. These people do the Lord's work, and they rarely get credit. So I'm grateful that they're able to be here. I'm grateful for your assistance, the council's assistance, getting a Child Advocacy Center up and running for us, their own standalone unit. I'd like to mention that Chief Mindshine is here. SPD is a member agency. The sheriff is unavailable today. He is out of town. A member agency. Life Crisis is here. Jamie Manning, their executive director, had another meeting, and I believe Roy Brewington, also a member, the director of the local Department of Social Services, might have a few words also.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank you. I just want to say thank you on behalf of the state of Maryland and on behalf of the Wicomico County Department of Social Services for the hard work and support that the council and the county in general has shown to this multidisciplinary team. As the state's attorney said, they do incredibly hard work that doesn't frequently get recognized unless something goes wrong. So it's great to have everyone here today to recognize all the things that they do right, because there is a lot of that goes into keeping the children in this county safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So, good morning, everybody. I've got two proclamations. They're worded exactly the same, so I'll just read one of them, but you guys get two. I cannot speak highly enough for the work that this team does. A lot of it goes on behind the curtain, and that's the design of what they do. And what you all do is just phenomenal. Every one of you, thank you for the work that you put in, and I appreciate it. Our county appreciates it. And all that being said, I have this proclamation for National Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas it is estimated nationally that more than 1,540 children die each year from child abuse and neglect, and whereas child abuse is a serious public health problem with studies documenting the link between abuse and a wide range of medical, emotional, psychological, and behavioral disorders, and whereas child abuse prevention is a community responsibility that requires partnerships among various agencies that work with children. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Wicomico County Council proclaims April 2026 as National Child Abuse Prevention Month, done this 21st day of April 2026, and signed by all members of the County Council. Thank you all so much. Please give these folks a large round of applause. Now we get to cram everybody in for a picture.
Come on up. Come on up.
Up there, you guys are a lot shorter, especially
You're doing the work. I'll sneak in the back. Caleb or John?
All the shoulders.
Came back here.
Sneak in the back.
Oh, in front of us. Or we think we're, thank you.
I'm gonna be next to you.
Oh, the tall guy is hiding. He's hiding. Jeez. Please. Captain Kerner, please join us. Thank you.
Get in there.
Anybody else?
Because you can't see me, I can't see you.
I can see you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Okay, back to work, people. All right.
Oh, my God. You had 15 minutes.
I did a one row anyway.
Next, we have a proclamation. Next, we have a proclamation to recognize National Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And we have with us Meg Cohen and Caleb Foltz, representatives of Life Crisis, and it's being presented by Councilwoman Shaney Shields.
Yeah. Are they here?
Did you call for Caleb Foltz?
Yes.
I sent him back to work.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh. She's getting him.
She's getting.
You're gonna go behind, Councilwoman Shields is reading the proclamation.
Sorry. It's okay. All right.
Shooed you away.
Got you all back, thank goodness. We have two proclamations for representing Life Crisis.
I shall read the proclamation of Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Whereas Sexual Assault Awareness Month is a time to draw attention to the prevalence of sexual assault and educate individuals and communities about how to prevent it. And whereas sexual harassment, abuse, and assault are widespread in the United States, nearly 1 in 5 women and 1 in 67 men have been raped at some time in their lives, and 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 20 boys have been sexually abused by the age of 17. And whereas sexual harassment, assault, and abuse can happen anywhere, including online, cyberbullying, sexual harassment have come to expect as typical online behavior. And whereas we make a difference by building safe online spaces that are free from sexual harassment, abuse, and assault by promoting online communities that value safety and respect. Now therefore, the Wicomico County Council hereby proclaims the month of April 2026 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month in Wicomico County, done the 21st day of April 2026, and it was signed by all the county council members.
Very good. We have another proclamation to recognize National Volunteer Appreciation Month. Councilman Shields will be reading this as well. And we have representatives as well from Life Crisis. If that's okay with the Madam State's Attorney.
Okay. First of all, volunteerism is very dear to my heart because when I moved back home, that's all I did for approximately 6 years before I got a regular job. So volunteers are needed. Volunteering is rewarding, and you could also put it on your resume. So I always tell young people especially, it's unpaid work, and you will eventually enjoy it. Proclamation Volunteer Appreciation Month, whereas April has been designated nationally as Volunteer Appreciation Month to recognize the hard work, dedication, and passion of volunteers. And whereas Volunteer Appreciation Month celebrates the impact volunteers have on our lives and encourage active volunteerism in generations to come. And whereas often unpaid, volunteers generously donate a part of their lives to connect with the community members through local service organizations. And whereas Life Crisis Center Incorporated has volunteers who serve by donating their time for the CASA program and the domestic violence of legal action advocacy. Now therefore, the Wicomico County Council recognized the month of April 2026 as a Volunteer Appreciation Month in Wicomico County and urges all citizens to volunteer in their community. Done this 21st day of April 2026, and it was signed by all the council members. There you go again. Thank
Good
you.
seeing you. Next, we have a proclamation, a special proclamation to recognize the 2026 Rising Star Award winner. This will be presented by Councilman David Ennis and former Vice President of the Wicomico County Council, Bill McCain. If you would join Mr. Ennis, that would be, and Teresa. Sorry, Teresa, I didn't see you here. The McCains, they actually sponsored this award. They did it voluntarily on their own effort. They thought it was necessary, and we appreciate
Ms.
their
Brunson,
efforts.
I assume? Please come up. How are you? John stole my thunder. I wanted to introduce Teresa and Bill. I'm doing it in the right order, so you know. McCain, and appreciate their dedication to education generally. As John just mentioned, Bill's a longtime member of the county council and vice president. Teresa was a teacher at Bennett.
Bennett Middle, Bennett High.
Bennett Middle, Bennett High, and I think also a previous or past Teacher of the Year recipient. And she and I sit on the Education Foundation currently, so appreciate all they do. Before I read the proclamation, I was going to ask whichever of you two would like just talk about the Rising Star Award and what it means.
I'll make a couple comments. 8 years ago, Teresa and I had the idea, we wanted to do something for the hard-working educators in our county, and particularly those that are beginning their career. And we came up with the idea of the Rising Star Award to recognize a teacher that's starting their career and hoping that by giving them some recognition and letting them know people appreciate the hard work that they do, that they'll continue in the profession. And kind of proof in the pudding was our very first recipient was Deborah Reynolds, and 6 years later, she was Teacher of the Year in Wicomico County. So that was kind of verification. No pressure eye on them, so I think it works. And I wish everyone here could see the videos that we get to see of all the teachers that were nominated for the award. And I want to thank the administration. This all started when Donna Hannon was superintendent, and then she embraced that. Dr. Stauffer has embraced that. So we thank them and the Board of Education as well.
Thank you for that, Bill. Okay, so Ayanna Brunson, 2026 Wicomico County Rising Star. Whereas new teachers who successfully completed their first year in Wicomico schools and are now in their second year and are eligible for the Rising Star Award, which was established in recognition and support teachers who are excelling in their first years in the profession. And whereas Ms. Ayanna Brunson, a math teacher at Salsbury Middle School, was selected as a finalist for the Rising Star Award, and whereas after a careful selection process, Ms. Ayanna Brunson was named 2026 Wicomico County Rising Star Award winner for showing creativity in the classroom and for providing transformative experiences to her students. Now, therefore, the Wicomico County Council congratulates Ms. Ayanna Brunson for being named 2026 Wicomico County Rising Star Award winner, done this 21st day of April 2026. So we're going to go straight to pictures. Let's you and I stand for this way. You get in. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you.
Next, we have the proclamation to recognize the 2026 finalists for the Wicomico County Teacher of the Year, presented also by Councilman David Ennis.
I'm going to ask all three finalists, Ms. Danielle Glenn, Ms. Shelley Smith, and Ms. Bethany Hammond, if they could please come forward. And these are three separate proclamations, but I've got special permission from Ms. Hurley to read them all at the same time, if I can get this done properly. But just first a word about the teaching profession, and I think everybody will agree to this. It's probably the most challenging profession that we know about, but also the most rewarding and the most important to our county and to our citizens. Just this morning, I came across a quote, and I think it expresses the teaching profession. Never underestimate the difference you made in the lives that you touched. So I thought that was pretty appropriate, and I'm very honored to present this proclamation for Teacher of the Year finalists, and to show our gratitude to you and all teachers in Wicomico County for what you do for our community. So I'll try to do this, getting all names inserted, and I was going to say try to get my verbs match my pronouns, lest the English teacher correct me. 2026-27 Wicomico County Teacher of the Year finalist. Whereas Ms. Danielle Glenn, a math teacher at Wicomico High School, Ms. Shelley Smith, an English teacher for speakers of other language, ESOL, teacher at Charles H. Chipman Elementary School, and Miss Bethany Hammond, a second grade teacher at Westside Intermediate School, were chosen amongst the many outstanding educators to represent Wicomico County High School as a 26-27 Wicomico Teacher of the Year finalist. And whereas, after extensive interview processes of the semifinalists, Miss Glenn, Miss Smith, Miss Hammond scored in the top 4 amongst their peers and were named a Wicomico County Teacher of the Year finalist. And whereas Miss Glenn, Miss Smith, Miss Hammond joins a distinguished group of Wicomico County educators who have been recognized for demonstrating outstanding leadership, dedication to the education of our children, and professional achievement. Now, therefore, the Wicomico County Council congratulates Miss Glenn, Miss Smith, and Miss Hammond for being named a 2026-27 Wicomico County Teacher of the Year finalist, done this 21st day of April 2026. So, if I got these in the right order or not, but hopefully you know who you are.
Yeah.
Your option if anybody cares to. Oh, you're coming? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have the proclamation to recognize the 2026-2027 Wicomico Teacher of the Year. Councilman Josh Hastings will be reading the proclamation for us.
Good to see everyone. Dr. Taylor, you wanna come up? Well, like I say, my twin sister and my brother are both Wicomico educators, and both of them have been Teacher of the Year nominees themselves. My sister Steph was actually a finalist for Teacher of the Year. Every year, one of my favorite things to do is just to kind of look at the comments that people make online. Usually not something you want to do, but in this case, when it comes to our educators and to understand, how great our teachers are in Wicomico County, it's really special, and it's really just so it's so inspiring. So I have the great honor of introducing Dr. Chelsea Taylor, 2026-2027 Wicomico Teacher of the Year. Whereas Dr. Chelsea Taylor, an English language arts teacher and literacy professional development coach at James and Bennett High School, was named the Teacher of the Year and will represent Wicomico County at the Maryland Teacher of the Year recognition program. Whereas Dr. Taylor is in her 12th year as a teacher at James and Bennett High School and currently teaches 10th grade English, supports her colleagues as a literacy coach, and serves as a college essay mentor and co-chair of the James and Bennett instructional leadership team. Whereas Dr. Taylor received her bachelor's degree in English education from Indiana University of Pennsylvania, earned her master's degree in curriculum and instruction from Salsbury University, and then earned her doctoral degree in education and literacy studies from Salsbury University. She is also an adjunct professor at Salsbury University, a member of the Maryland State Board of Education Association, and the National Council of Teachers of English. Whereas Dr. Taylor's hope is that her students leave her classroom feeling inspired, challenged, accepted, and like that they've been a part of the community. She holds students to the highest expectations and wants them to feel that they can reach those expectations. Her hope is that her students know that they can dream big and that they have people who are their cheerleaders and support them along the way. She strives to have a collaborative relationship with her students and a joyful, rigorous classroom environment. So now, therefore, Wicomico County Council congratulates Dr. Chelsea Taylor for being named the 2026-2027 Wicomico County Teacher of the Year, done this 21st day of April 2026, signed by the entire County Council. Please give a great round of applause to Dr. Chelsea Taylor.
I just want to thank everyone. Thank you guys for all that you do for our students, the staff, the teachers. We really appreciate the things that you do to help us in Wicomico County. And I can't wait to be the representative for Wicomico County this next year.
We'll come up out front.
The final proclamation we have is a proclamation to recognize the National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. Representatives from Emergency Services, 911 Communication Division will be here to be presented by Vice President Jeff Merritt. Good morning, everyone. Lorenzo, are you going to give them more than the 15 minutes the state attorney was allotting? I'm hoping. No comment. Okay. You run a tight ship also, don't you?
Sir? Good morning. Good morning again, everybody. Again, a group of people that do phenomenal work behind the scenes. Their first contact when you're having a bad day is these guys. They answer the phone 24/7 with the utmost. I've been in the operations center when things are happening, and these guys are the most professional people I've ever seen. They cool under fire, and I believe we had a storm recently that was all hands on deck for about 4 days, wasn't it? Yeah. Thanks to you all for the work you did during that incredibly challenging time. So it is my honor to read this proclamation for National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. Whereas National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week recognizes the dedicated men and women who answer the calls for help at 911 centers across the country, and whereas 911 specialists provide the first critical contact for those in need of emergency services, and in the midst of a crisis, obtain vital information from callers to rapidly link them to first responders, and sometimes dispense vital life-saving information themselves. And whereas the Wicomico County Department of Emergency Services employs highly trained and dedicated 911 specialists who are on duty 24 hours a day, every day of the year, and often go unrecognized for the work they perform, which enhances the safety of the entire community. Now, therefore, the Wicomico County Council hereby proclaims the week of April 12th through 18th, 2026, as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in Wicomico County, and thanks all 911 specialists for their dedicated service to the community, done this 21st day of April 2026, signed by all members of the County Council.
Good morning. As some of you do know me in this room, some of you do not. My name is John Cooper. I'm the Chief Communications Specialist for the 911 Center, and it's an honor to stand here and thank you guys and the Executive's Office for making sure our people are taken care of and appreciated. It goes to lengths that we can't even go to thank. Like Councilman Merritt was saying, we've had a couple snowstorms this year that have been bigger than normal for here, which causes call volume go up, and our people keep showing up, working, and busting their tail to make sure that the citizens and the first responders for the county are taken care of. We have with us today, this gentleman is Wyatt Massey and Emily Lewis. They are two of our 3 new hires that are just getting signed off through the academy and are getting ready to hit the floor. So if you call 911, there's 2 of the faces that you may be talking to. Thank you again.
And the gentleman in the yellow tie is Director Lorenzo Cropper.
Wow. Where'd everyone go?
We got a back row question. If anybody was here.
They don't want to stay.
Clear out good.
Oh, man. Mr. Hurley, good morning.
Good morning, Council President, council members, ladies and gentlemen. Before we begin, I want to bring to everyone's attention that we did add a resolution to the agenda late yesterday afternoon. That's resolution number 69-2026 that has been included in the online brief book. And there's also a copy of the resolution on the council table along with the updated emergency declaration. So the first item on the agenda is a public hearing on resolution number 60-2026. This is approving the renewal of a license agreement with the mayor and commissioners of Delmar and Delmar Little League, Inc. to utilize the county-owned Mason-Dixon Sports Complex in Delmar for a period of 5 years, commencing April the 1st, 2026, and ending April the 1st, 2031. The rental rate is $1 per year. The property will be used by the town of Delmar and the Delmar Little League for the purpose of providing public recreation program, which includes regularly scheduled practices, games, programs, and tournament events. And we have Mr. Steve Miller here, our Director of Recreation, Parks, and Tourism, if you have any questions. And again, this is a public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Hurley. At this time, we open the floor for public hearing on resolution number 60-2026. If you have any comments that you'd like to make in reference to this specific resolution, come to the podium, please. State your name, your county of residence, and your concerns.
Good morning.
Morning.
Joe White, Parsonsburg, east side of the county. I'd like to say that I'm in favor of you extending this lease. I was able to attend Delmar Little League's opening day this past Saturday. And to the kids who live in that town and nearby, it was an important day. I have been coming here for 3 years, advocating for Parks and Rec programming, attend the Parks and Rec Commission meetings. It's been great that Director Miller has done such a wonderful job with the communication of this project. I don't know exactly how long he's been working on it, but over the last 2 years, from the design phase to implementation, and also the additional of moving into phase 2. It's an exciting time. Youth sports programming in our parks is such an integral part, and this is not costing the taxpayers of this county money. You have so many volunteers out there who are making this happen, and to see the excitement and the dedication that those kids and those volunteers are putting in, this is an easy win for the county, so please approve.
Thank you, Mr. White. Any other public comments? Seeing none, that concludes public comments. Entertain a motion from council to approve resolution 60-2026.
So move.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? I think it's great to continue. Delmar has a great sports program, and as Mr. White said, Mr. Miller runs a perfect program for the county across the entire county, especially is doing an excellent job in Delmar. All those in favor of resolution 60-2026, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution passes unanimously.
Next is a public hearing on resolution number 61-2026. This is to amend the fiscal year 26 capital budget to include funding in the amount of $116,700 for the Westside Community Center roof replacement project. And again, this falls under Mr. Steve Miller, our Director of Recreation, Parks, and Tourism.
Thank you, Ms. Hurley. At this time, we open the floor for a public hearing on resolution number 61-2026. If you have any comments you'd like to make, come to the podium, please. State your name, your county of residence, and your concerns.
Jim Atkins, Wicomico County. I'm also standing in support of this adoption resolution to move this funding forward from 2019 to immediately. The Westside Neighborhood Alliance is utilizing the community building, which is owned by the county. That building currently is being used for yoga classes, historical programs, youth sports activities, basketball courts, all kinds of things, Christmas parties, everything. They have a major problem with the roof. The county is aware of the problem with the roof, and we need to get it fixed. And the sooner we get it fixed, the cheaper it's going to be for everybody. So please put this at the front of the line for things that need to be done. The community center is one of the few things that the community on the west side of the county on that end has in their benefit. A meeting place to go, things to do, and that group down there, the West Side Neighborhood Alliance, is really building a operation down there as a nonprofit organization, and the county needs to continue to support that for the betterment of the West Side. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins.
Hi, my name is Beverly Plachta. I'm from Nanticoke, and I am a representative of the Westside Neighborhood Alliance. As he said, we got together to revitalize the building. We were approached by the Parks and Rec to run programs down there, and so we did form this nonprofit. The building itself was built in 1959 by the people of the West Side. It was sold to the county for $1. So I think that the county has really gotten its worth, and the roof is about the same roof that we've had since then. So the roof is, lived its life, and we'd really appreciate it. And as one of the people who actually is one of the volunteers, my job is to maintain the building, and I do that personally. I mop the floors, I sweep, I clean the bathrooms, I do everything that has to do with that thing, along with some of my other volunteers. So we just need, we were making improvements to the building, and we would like to keep going on and continue with our programs. So I hope you will put this money forth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Plachta. Any other public comments? Seeing none, that concludes the public hearing on resolution number 61, 2026. Entertain a motion from council to approve resolution 61, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? I'm glad to see we're moving this forward. As Mr. Atkins says, it was, I believe, in 29, and we're moving this funding forward. We recognize the emergency, and I have to say personally, I've been down there on several events with the West Side Neighborhood Alliance, and the work they're doing there is absolutely phenomenal for that community, which is also part of Wicomico County, of course. And it's really nice to see when you have volunteers who take on the initiative that they've taken and to make so many good things happen. I appreciate the fact that Steve Miller, Director Miller, agreed, together with the council, to move forward with giving you so much control over that community center, because what you've done with it's fantastic. It's more than I think even the county could or had done in the past. So congratulations on all your hard work. Any other comments, questions? No.
Let's get this thing done.
Seeing none, all those in favor of resolution 61, 2026, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Resolution passes.
2026. This is approving 4 utility easement agreements with Delmar Power and Light Company at the Mason-Dixon Complex.
Entertain a motion from council to approve resolution 62, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Resolution passes unanimously.
Okay, next on the agenda is a recap of the 2026 General Assembly session by our Wicomico County State Delegation.
Yep, if you would all come forward, that would be great. I see 2.
We were expecting 7 of the representatives to attend today.
I think we have some more coming from out.
Right here.
Good morning, everybody. We know how busy you all have been, and we can't appreciate enough for you all being here today. I know Wayne Hartman texted me and said that he had some obligations in Worcester County this morning, but I can't thank you enough for the hard work. You don't look as stressed as you should, considering everything I know you've been through. It's been a heck. It's always a tough year. It's always a tough couple of months and all.
Absolutely.
I will let you decide as to how you may want to handle the protocol, whether it would be Senator Carrozza or whether it would be Delegate Adams as head of the Wicomico County delegation.
Senator, go ahead.
I'll start and.
Make sure you have the mic close enough to you. We're sharing today.
First of all, I want to thank all of you for having us and for giving us the opportunity, and to thank the entire council and the county for working with us on our shore priorities. And before I get into some specifics, I just wanted to share with the council members how proud I am to work with each and every member of this Eastern Shore delegation. And we are, as you all know, we are outnumbered across the bridge. And what we've done, I believe, as a delegation working with you all, is each of us maximize our own committee positions, relationships, and networks, and advance our shore priorities. And with Delegate Adams chairing the Eastern Shore delegation, it has brought a real focus and has allowed us to prioritize. And among the wins that I, again, wanted to thank your cooperation, when I look at the Eastern Shore delegation wins, we had to move forward with emergency legislation to support our poultry industry. Some of you all were aware that the Maryland Department of the Environment allowed the CAFO, concentrated animal feeding operation permit, to expire in July, which stalled all construction for our poultry growers in moving forward, costing about $35 million industry-wide. And so that was a true emergency, and I believe that the Maryland Department of the Environment, they acknowledged that it was their mistake. They worked with us on the legislation and supported it, along with the Maryland Department of the Agriculture. This delegation made it a priority. That legislation was passed, and as soon as it's signed into law, and we expect that at the very next bill signing, it goes to in effect. And that's something that we did together as a delegation. I also, as you can see up here, one of our former friends and colleagues, Delegate Charles Otto, we miss him. And one way that we honored his legacy in supporting our farm families is by naming the Charles J. Otto Agricultural Education Promise Act in his honor, which supports agriculture education for our young people and in the high-tech areas and across the board, which really, if you think about how Charles would fight for our farm families, this is a true legacy. And what it does, we will now have a dedicated source of state funding for agriculture education for our students. Significant accomplishment. Again, something we prioritized as an Eastern Shore delegation was the Kennedy Krieger Special Education School that is coming to Wicomico County. And I specifically want to acknowledge Dr. Micah Stouffer. He's brought this to us about a year and a half ago, basically showing us a map where in the Eastern Shore, if you look at the map across the board, that you will see there's only one special education facility for the entire shore. Brought that to our attention. We prioritized it as a delegation, and together we were able to secure $5 million in state funding for Kennedy Krieger School to be located in Wicomico County, but to serve the entire shore region. I also want to give credit to Healthy Shores, Healthy Minds for Shore, and the Greater Salsbury Committee for their leadership. On the public safety front, we had a significant win. Delegate Barry Beecham was the sponsor, and I was the sponsor on the Senate side. We moved forward this session with our roadway pedestrian safety bill. And I want to give credit to the Wicomico County State's Attorney's Office, Salisbury Police Chief Mindshine, the Wicomico Sheriff's Office. We had to work on it during the interim because of some issues that were raised last session. This bill worked through, again, with your partnership, really truly highlights the fact that we made it a public safety priority at a local level. And that bill literally, if you want to hear some drama in the closing minutes, was pushed over the line in the last 10 minutes before sine die, pushing it over. And again, I want to thank Delegate Barry Beecham for his leadership on that. It was his House bill that got pushed over. My other colleagues will talk about some of the capital budget highlights. I know I also want to thank especially Councilmember Wynn for all his advocacy on Sunday hunting and what we were able to do at the state level, but with Wicomico County included. Senator Mounts was key with that legislation as well. But my purpose in sharing just some of the highlights is to let you know that we are outnumbered. But we work very hard, and we try to use all of our committee assignments to advance our short priorities. And we look forward, if I could leave just something that we could do in the interim, is the sooner we can work on our legislation in the interim and have it teed up for session start, puts us in the strongest position. We're actually able to pre-file some bills that way, get early hearings, and advance them. As long as we can work it out locally for the consensus, you all tell it's locally supported, we can move forward with that. So again, want to thank each and every member of the Wicomico County Council for working with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Okay, Council President Cannon and Wicomico County Council, Delegate Chris Adams, and pleasure to be here as always. This is my 12th year, I think, serving and showing up after session, and each year has its own unique attributes and benefits, but this year, if you'll remember, my concern about last year in the budget, this year was realized through that budget conversation. So let me just start with the budget. I know Delegate Beecham is on appropriations, but each of us have to vote on what is the most important single bill that we pass each year. We can pass by Constitution one bill and one bill alone. Everything else is sort of icing on the cake if you want to look at it like that. So we have to pass a budget. I supported the budget this year because there were no tax increases on that budget. It did imply tax increases for next year, so you'll get a variation on the theme of who supported what during that. But you'll remember last year that I, for the first time in my 11 years, voted against the budget for one reason and one reason alone, because the legislature had to raise taxes, had to divert funding from blueprint into future years to balance the budget, which I found last year to be untenable, and wanted to send a message to my constituents, but also to the legislature, that while I'm a business owner that understands budgeting and that a budget has to be passed, whether it's good times or bad times, the legislature had multiple paths to resolve the structural problems with the budget, and this year they resolved it. Now, presumption being I'll be back next year after session's over, the story is going to be far more, in my opinion, catastrophic, because those budget shortfalls next year measure in multiple billions of dollars and can get close to $5 billion in just a few years. You just don't fix that by sending money off to future year budgets and funding priorities that get passed for next year instead of this year. They're going to have to raise taxes. And these aren't, Council President Cannon, the kind of tax increases that are biting around the edges. We expect as a legislature to see the sales tax raised potentially from 6 to 8%. You are going to see property taxes, which I think the legislature has already acknowledged that property taxes are going up. You're seeing your coffers increasing. Don't lose sight of the fact over the next couple, 3 years, the legislature sees tremendous increase in property tax revenue to the counties. When we talk about the legislature passing budgets, they often do it through the lens of unfunded mandates and passing those responsibilities down to you, the local elected officials. That concerns me a great deal. It's why I wanted to start and just finish by talking about the budget and where I see it moving forward. But you do want to understand how this affects a future council, whoever that might be moving forward, that these next few years are going to feel and look a lot like it did under the second term of Martin O'Malley. And unless and until the legislature gets honest about spending and being fair with the locals about how we prioritize our spending and making sure that we allow the locals to evaluate for themselves how to spend money and not everything has to come from Annapolis, in which I don't think that conversation is going to lead, that we continue to have those sort of problems. I will share just two things that concern me also. Mayor Beth did a great job of showing the wins. I think that I'm end up being sort of like the counterbalance on this a little bit. The energy policy this year that we passed was difficult at best, is the way for me to describe it for you. We as a legislature could do so much to increase generation of energy, natural gas, nuclear. Whether or not I agree or disagree with wind and solar is secondary to the fact the legislature has basically said that we're not willing or interested to focus on the generation of energy in a market-principled way to keep prices down. Supply and demand still rules over energy policy, and as a county council, you should know that your constituents over the next handful of months during the summertime are going to see bills that are going to be unusual unusually high for them, and they're going to be upset. During an election year, they're going to say, what happened? I heard we're going to save some money, that legislature passed a bill. What they're going to see in practice are the kind of energy bills that are going to be unusually high, and they have a right to say what happened. Well, what happened is we decided to revisit the Empower, which is the subsidy to help with projects for energy efficiency. So there was some acknowledgement that that funding was poorly conceived and or misspent, to be blunt. And so we used some of that money to quote unquote give it back to the ratepayer, and it did save some money. It did save $12 a month is what they're estimating. But to be candid with you, these energy bills are going up hundreds of dollars a month during the summer and the winter times, and this will not be enough to satisfy the citizens. The other thing that I'll share, because I'm sure others will talk about energy during this discussion, is that I'm on the Economic Matters Committee. We picked up housing this year and also land use and zoning. You do not have enough time for me to spend all the time I would have to share these policies that came through. This was first blush for me. That was in a different committee. It came in this year, so I was on subcommittee for housing and land use and zoning. There were a handful of bills. I'll just allow the council, if you have a question on some of those bills, to ask me. But if I'm a landlord. If you're a landlord or property owner, there are a great number of bills that passed and also didn't pass this year that should cause a great deal of concern about trying to run a business. A lease, I've said on the House floor and also in committee, is a binding contract between two willing parties, and the legislature seems more and willing to stand in the place of these two parties and start writing these contracts, eliminating the element of a contract having a beginning and an end. And when you say as a legislature that you're going to pass a bill, which they didn't this year, that a lease shall remain in place and that a landlord cannot non-renew a lease, you're basically saying that a tenant has a tremendous amount of power over how long they can stay in that house, notwithstanding the concerns that a landlord would have. These are things, as we talk about housing, availability of housing, cost of housing, the issues that relate to why somebody would make real investments in real estate, developing projects, buying properties and doing that sort of thing. When we're trying to encourage and increase that, my committee passed some bills, and I saw a lot that didn't pass, that would fly right in the face of just good market principles, where risk takers are going to look twice and say, is this the state where we want to make these kind of investments? There's nothing that DHC can do, in my humble opinion, through subsidy or through incentive, to look at a risk decision in a private practice of a business owner deciding whether or not they're going to spend millions of dollars developing projects. That comes through instinct and intuition, and the legislature did a poor job this year of speaking to the private sector business owner through the lens of instinct and intuition when it comes to housing. So with that, I could probably go on, but I'll stop. I think I talked long enough, and I'll pass it along to another member.
Thank you. Senator Mouse, I appreciate you being here. I think you said you had an obligation with your son, which was almost a conflict, but we appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, I missed the trip, but I'm happy to report Johnny is signed up. He's going to go play basketball for Northern Arizona University. So he's going to be a lumberjack. Yeah, all right. Not known, basketball has not been known in our family until Johnny came along. I had a chance once to play on a really good team when I was younger, but I was nothing more than a training tool for practice, but he's the real deal, so we're excited about that. And he's doing well. I'm happy to be here. I didn't want to miss this opportunity. It's kind of a different, I'll try to be brief. It was a different session, since I joined the General Assembly in 2014. We opened the session with these two initiatives, one dealing with banning 287G programs. There are a number of bills that went through the legislature this year dealing with immigration enforcement. These are bad bills. They're bills that are undermine public safety, and more importantly, they undermine immigrants. They're just going to incentivize more ICE intervention in our neighborhoods, and it's very unfortunate. It's driven by high-level politics, but that's the fact. That's the reality. And they're a direct result of these bills that went through the legislature. The other one was gerrymandering. The governor's made gerrymandering his top priority. And it's important, and to bring up, gerrymandering occurs. I mean, redistricting normally happens after every census, every 10 years. There's a lot that goes into Maryland and redistricting in our legislative districts. I mean, it was once almost a 60-40 representative federal level state, and years ago, and it's been reduced to, to one seat, But, in that discussion, people don't talk about this enough, but at one time, Maryland, we had a senator and a delegate for every county in the state of Maryland. We're talking about redistricting and fair representation, rural districts, after that change, rural districts, that's when the state of Maryland really changed, and the voting power went into urban areas, and kind of has gotten us where we are right now, talking about the budget, what Delegate Adams was talking about. But we started the session with those two high-level issues, which was way out of order, way out of sync, and it's typically a time when you're drafting bills, people are getting, running around trying to get things organized, and that wasn't the case this year. It's very different. And there was also the budget discussions, and we went into session thinking that it was going to be similar to the previous session, where there were the largest tax increase in the state's history, to make up for the budget shortfall. It is an election year, and there were some decisions made to prevent that, going into an election year. I think that's kind of the consensus of what happened, which is why you'll see a number of projects were funded this year. And I think Delegate Adams is dead on. Next year, the budget is going to be a cliff, and there's got to be a decision, and the cliff is really the blueprint for education. And that decision is really going to be made by the majority votes, the majority party. And I know half the majority party has recognized that the blueprint is not fundable. It's not feasible. There's some real problems with the blueprint. I think the other half think that the blueprint is the way to go, and they're ready to double down. So when you go to Mako and you're interacting with different state officials, explain to them, the hardship and the reality of what the blueprint has meant for Wicomico County, because they're going to make some very important decisions next session. There's some other bills that I want to share with you because it may be of interest. You're going to hear a lot from the delegation. But, we had a devastating year in commercial fishing. There are a lot of things that went on. There was primarily, it led off with a report about bacteria in the water and oysters. It was somehow attributed back to Maryland oysters. We've had a downtrend in our market. So when the oyster season opened up, couldn't sell oysters. First time in memory, Thanksgiving, the industry was unable to sell oysters at Thanksgiving. That carried through until Christmas. So individuals that were working typically 5 days a week were getting 1 day a week of work, if that. And then came the weather, and we had a brutal winter, and then the bay froze up. Then there was no market whatsoever, which later, quickly following this, the largest sewage spill in the country's history in the Potomac River. It's just one thing after the next. After, the delegation, the Eastern Shore delegation wrote a letter to the governor, made a number of requests. It took a very long time. We did get a letter requesting disaster relief. That's being reviewed by the federal government, and whether or not it develops into anything, this is a really important part of our economy, especially wintertime economy. And so what happened this session is we were able to get a disaster fund created for commercial fishing. So there will be some loans. It's not grants. We're not giving money away, but it's created so in order to provide a little bit of funding to these individuals so they'll stay in the industry and they'll be able to pay this money back. And it's a low interest loan, and it's accountable, and it's going to work. So that was a big win for us. It was a very frustrating experience that the state wasn't more in front of this. The regulatory bodies tend to just restrict rather than be stewards of all that goes into that. And it's really important to note because with working with the industry, the Bay has made an incredible recovery. Oysters right now are at a historic recruitment level. They've never seen oysters grow the way they've been growing. And that's directly attributed to areas that are called public fishing areas. And along with what we've done with the commercial fishing is we've also solidified funding from the Department of Transportation to mitigate damage done to the Chesapeake Bay by shipping. And that was formerly referred to as an MOU. And an MOU is pretty tough to enforce. It's one government entity agreeing to pay another government entity. Well, we actually put this in law now that there will be a set-aside money that will go to oyster recruitment in the Bay. What's interesting is that money in the past was getting used by Department of Natural Resources to pay their salaries. So it actually was money to save the Bay. but the money was never making it to the bay. It was stopping in the TAWS building and wasn't going any further. And so what we've done is we put parameters, and there's a guaranteed amount of money that is going to get to TAWS, is going to go out and get into the bay. So that was a good thing. You're going to hear about Sunday hunting and the restrictions. I'll let another representative talk about that. But something that was, I think, that was a very significant issue for our district was this proposed ban on the use of lead shot. That made it through the House. It was coming to the Senate. We were able to prevent that from going into place. That would have forever created a legacy in Maryland, putting us with California as the only state that would have banned the use of lead shot, which would have been very problematic. Just to summarize it, lead and copper are very different. In order to require copper, everybody's going to have to get new barrels for their firearms. And copper in itself is also very toxic. Anybody try to take care of herbicide, you get the copper sulfate. So the idea that we're just going to mandate copper really didn't make a whole lot of sense. So that bill was streamlined. It was put in place. It applies to venison donation now. There is no across-the-board ban on lead shot. So that was a big concern that we heard about. Getting back to the beginning of session, you may want to ask me some questions. We had a local alcohol bill that ran into a lot of controversy. We were able to get it out of committee. We got it out of committee on a divided vote with a 1-vote majority, and then it went to the Senate floor. It got to the Senate floor, and it got held by another member from another county. At that point, it was clear to me that at the Senate floor, there was an intention to amend that bill and change the bill. There was no way for us to bring that back to the county to get it approved. So we sent the bill back to committee, and we can work on that over the summer and have some more discussions. And a lot of that, I think, came down to confusion and understanding of what the bill did. It was pretty frustrating. I put a lot of time and energy into that. And I know there's at least one entity that was really relying on the ability to be able to utilize that new authority in that legislation, but there was too much crammed into the beginning of session to unpack that and to get it through the Senate. And we also, our Delegate Sample Hughes is not here. She's the new chair for the Alcohol Subcommittee in the House of Delegates. And I think it'd be very important to bring Delegate Hughes, she'll be Sample Hughes, into that discussion, because she could be a great leader for the county in developing this, because we try to take all of our local bills, we try to get them through, but if we can't get them through, we don't want them to be shot down, because it doesn't look, it's not helpful to the county, it's not helpful to the process, and we want to keep it a local issue. And then just to follow up, there was also the push for the minimum wage increase in our committee, Senate Finance, and also to eliminate the tip credit. Those are very problematic for small independent businesses. You talk about the budget, where are we economically? All you got to do is look at our neighboring states, look at economic growth, look at Maryland, what's happening. The $15 minimum wage is in place, and it has not brought the prosperity and all the things that were promised that were to come along with that. And eliminating the tip credit, if you look at Washington, D.C., the statistics are staggering about the impact that it has on business. Those were both rejected. Energy is a real problem, and I just want to repeat, there is not relief coming. I expect prices to probably go up. And until we get to the root of our renewable portfolio standard, that's supply and demand, we're not going to see a change. It was very frustrating. During session, while we were debating that bill, the Senate took a number of amendments. Now, they didn't fix the core. They would have provided some stability, I think, in the market with the amendments. But at the same time, the people that, the entities, the stakeholders that are lobbying for these, I call them high-dollar transformations in energy, mandating, 100% renewable energy consumption by 2035, zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2045. They spent over $250,000 doing television ads, advising people to call their representatives to vote for this legislation, which actually, it does nothing to help the constituents. That's the world we're in right now with energy. It's a big concern. But it was a very busy session. It's a great honor to be here, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Senator. Delegate Hutchinson, I think, yes, seniority takes place.
That's fair enough. So, President Cannon and Council, great to be here. I can't believe it's only been a week that we've been home from our 90-day session. I'm still sleeping in a little bit in the morning trying to catch up, but we've been very busy, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today. I just ended my fourth year, my first term. Probably one of the greatest things I've ever done in my life, other than being a father. And in the 4 years, I think I've realized and discovered a niche in what I can do to help the Eastern Shore. I'm a proud member of the Health Committee. I'm the Republican ranking member of the Health Committee, and it helps me be able to focus on issues we have here on the shore in terms of health care, workforce shortage issues, access to care, quality of care, ED wait times. I have a great relationship with Tidal Health. I have a great relationship with Shore Health, and helping them as well navigate the politics in Annapolis. So to give you maybe some good news of some good things that have happened and I've participated in on the Health Committee. Actually, I have a great relationship with the Speaker of the House. I worked with a bill with the Speaker of the House on a bill around arterial calcification. The number one killer of women is heart disease. And when a woman has a mammogram done, there is a warning sign that can be found in a mammogram called arterial calcification that never got reported back. There was never a requirement to report that back. And this bill will require that as an early warning sign that a woman be notified so that then she could go and have future help if needed. Another bill I worked on with Delegate Cherie Sample Hughes, she and I both have a passion around the quality of care in our nursing homes here on the shore. There's a couple within District 37 that we are concerned about, but it's pervasive not only on the shore but throughout the state. And the nursing homes get rated and ranked, but there's no teeth to actually hold them accountable for improving their performance. And far too often, I'm aware of constituents that go to a nursing home and that's their end of life while they're in that nursing home. So this bill actually gets the local health department involved and notified of issues that are occurring and to be able to elevate those further. It also creates a work group that we're going to now work on how do we hold the nursing homes accountable for improving their performance, and I'm happy to be a part of that work group. I expanded a bill that I did 2 years ago around X-ray machine operators. It's a shortage that we have throughout the state. The number of individuals that are trained to do X-rays is very, very high, and that just expanded that bill to be able to expand additional qualified X-ray machine operators. Behavioral health issues are also fairly big for me. We have a number of behavioral health issues on the shore and shortages, and one was we have a lot of clinical interns who are excellent in being able to provide behavioral health services, but only Medicaid would pay for them and commercial insurers wouldn't pay for them. So if a patient was qualified to move over to commercial, got a job, advanced in life, they weren't being paid, and so they had to be dropped off, and it was a horrible continuity of care issue that they had. I'll probably be Legislator of the Year for the hospice network here on the shore. One thing which is really interesting is that Medicaid does not pay for room or board for hospice patients. So when a family is faced with a decision on what to do with their loved one, it typically is that they put them into a skilled nursing facility because a skilled nursing facility will be paid for by Medicaid. And that's a horrible end of life for them. They don't have the palliative care that they need. They then end up back in our emergency rooms. That creates the emergency room backlog that's there. So we opened the door for actually studying how other states have been able to do that, and I'll be working with them on that. Then one of probably the coolest bills I worked on with another delegate from Anne Arundel County is to have commercial payers pay for scalp cooling. And if you don't know what scalp cooling is, that's a device that goes on the head, typically of a woman who's going through breast cancer treatment, chemotherapy. It freezes the hair follicles and allows them to keep their hair. And I have a personal experience of having my former wife who went through that and the trauma of losing all of her beautiful hair. And it's a mental health issue not only for the patient, but also for the family and the children that see that happen. And that was a great one, and it was a lot of fun working on that important legislation. One of the things I also found out this year is it's good to introduce bills, but the bill doesn't have to pass to go into effect. And as Senator Mounts was referring to our watermen, they did have a terrible oyster harvest. But I also learned, as being a member of the Watermen's Caucus, is that I think they're just as hardworking as our farmers are, but they don't have the clout and the backing that the farmers have, such as the Farm Bureau. And they need help in terms of marketing. And so Senator Mounts and I introduced a bill to create a work group on seafood marketing. And I'll give you the genesis of that. The state of Maryland invests $170,000 a year for seafood marketing. For all of the bounty that we get out of the bay and the coastal bays and the Atlantic, that's the only budget that we have, and it's actually administered to the Department of Agriculture. They saw that it was a great bill and a great need, that they said, let's not have a bill, let's not wait for a bill signing, let's get the work group going immediately. I just got the letter of notification this week. Senator Mounts will be on it. Senator Crozier will be on it. I'll be on it, as well as another delegate who's the head of the subcommittee chair, and we're looking for the other members. And give you an example that we studied, the state of Alaska has a quasi-public partnership in terms of seafood marketing. They call it the Alaska Seafood Marketing Institute. They have a $21 million budget. They get $5 million from the state. They get $6 million from the federal government, and they get $10 million from their harvesters and their processors. So if we could get that $170,000 to $500,000 to $1 million to help our hardworking watermen, I think that would be a great cause. And then one just last thing to note is that the Speaker of the House started a rural caucus this year. It wasn't just a namesake. It just wasn't a placeholder. It's chaired by Delegate Jeff Grice from District 36 and co-chaired by Natalie Ziegler from Howard County. They were very effective. They were very effective on focusing on issues here on the shore. And I'll close by saying, just as the senator said in the opening, there are 9 delegations in Annapolis. The Eastern Shore delegation works incredibly well together. I hope to see all of us come back next year to continue that work. And if we don't look at it as we represent this county, this district, we all look at it as we represent the Eastern Shore and making sure that our heritage and our way of life stays here. Thank you.
Delegate Beecham, good morning. It's still morning.
It is, just barely, right? Well, no, we got 50 minutes. Look, it's a pleasure to serve you guys. I just want you to know that, it's a pleasure to serve the citizens of, the county. And, I'm on appropriations, and my subcommittee is public safety. And it's kind of in the wheelhouse. Last year it was education. This year, all the committees got changed up because of the new speaker that we had. So it was, like, there was no complacency. Everybody was kind of not sure-footed about what they were doing, But I had the pleasure of presenting 3 bills this year, and 2 out of 3 passed. So, it made me feel really good, The first bill was House Bill 845, and it's higher education, student financial assistance. Basically, the town of Delmar, the kids there would have to transfer out at their senior year. They would have to transfer to another school because the high school is actually in Delaware, so they wouldn't honor the scholarships. So basically, that's been an issue for years, and it was brought to me. I took it to basically to committee, and we discussed it, and what I ended up doing was ended up having to reach across the aisle as a bipartisan move. Delegate Ben Barnes, he and I discussed it, and he said that the chances of getting that bill across would be slim unless we actually included the workers' children from the Key Bridge. Basically, if we amended the bill and allowed those to be on it, then he said he thought that we could get it through, and that's exactly what we did. So, to to be able to work, in a bipartisan way was one of the things that I felt really good about. And, hopefully that will carry on, for a bunch of children, and help them. The second one was House Bill 591, and that was the Wicomico County Highway Pedestrian Bill. And that had been presented a few years, and last year, Senator Carrozza, she got her work done, but I just couldn't get my end done. It was, I was new to it, I was getting my footing, but it really, that bill, Chief Mindshine came up and, he spoke on it. Really, is an important bill. But to me, also, Bruce Bariano, having Bruce come in, he actually went to the Senate and helped push that thing, right at the last minute, because it did. It came right down to the last, 10 minutes of sine die. So that's a big deal. To me, I really appreciated seeing that one cross, with my name on it. I was on the floor. I had my grandson on the floor with me the day that it actually got voted unanimously. But the comical part was my grandson had to use the restroom. So I wasn't there for them to clap for me, so they didn't clap for me, but it passed anyway. The third bill was House Bill 460, and that was the Republican caucus. They basically handed that to me, and what we were trying to do was get the solar initiative down from 5% on farmlands to 2%. And if you looked at the economic impact of removing 5% of our farmland, it's just not healthy. It ranged, depending on how people calculated it, from 120,000 to 148,000 acres of farmland being taken out of production. It's just not sustainable. When we're having to actually import grain and corn to feed the poultry industry here, if you're going to, basically truck corn from Ohio to Mount Air or to Purdue, doesn't make any sense. Everybody knows the cost of goods, we're going to go up with something like that. So that was one. That didn't make it across the finish line, which, I was hoping that they would amend it and actually pull it back to, say, 2.5% or something, but they basically wouldn't bring it out of committee. It sat on the desk, so, but the, talking about unfunded mandates, being on appropriations, and talking about the blueprint, the teachers' pensions, you're going to see some of the things that have gone on, over the last 2 years that are going to affect us, locally. Teachers' pensions are something that, really the unions are the ones that dictate, how much the pensions and the costs are going to be, and then you're going to end up with us paying for it with having no say in how much is being spent. So, there are just some things that are out of balance. And, as far as the fight goes, I'll tell you, I have never been more proud to be with a group of 39 people than I was the Saturday before the sine die Monday. It was, we fought a bill for 5 hours, and basically we offered 17 amendments on the bill, and it was basically to keep Maryland from being a sanctuary state. We did all that we could, but what I really appreciated in seeing that was, in those 5 hours, I am certain that we saved so many bad bills from being brought forth and passed. Almost 2,700 bills were presented, and out of the 2,700, 800 have passed. So, basically 1,900 bills, we worked really well to kill. So that would be one of the things I'd be most proud of. Thanks for letting me serve you guys.
And that's true, because there were a lot of bad bills in Annapolis every year. Any questions or comments from anyone?
I have one.
Shani?
2, 3. We're in an election year, and the cost of living will be coming up, affordability. And when you hear that utilities will be higher than normal, when you hear that taxes are going up, child care is outrageous. $15 an hour, you say that small businesses, have a problem with that because it hurts them, but also their expenses can be taken off their taxes, I believe. I believe. I'm not a small business, but the concern I have, when things go up, and I think Delegate Adams was saying he was a landlord, when your taxes go up and other things go up, it trickles down to a tenant. And one of the problems we have is home ownership in this community. How can we help people become homeowners instead of renters? And one of the things I been thinking about, and it has happened, where if you have a tenant living in your home, I guess for so many years, like rent to own project, not necessarily your property, but promote rent to own. Because even a Habitat house now costs over $200,000. People are not making the money to afford things. You have parents working 2 jobs to just make it. And then that's when they lose their children to the streets because they can't afford child care. So that's one of my concerns. The nursing home situation. I've had a sister, brother, and an aunt in the nursing home. The nursing home care that the one we have, to me, is excellent. I never had a problem with the nursing home. They would call you when they change your medication. I never had a nursing facility call you 9 o'clock at night. And when they started doing it, I thought that something had happened to my aunt, but it wasn't. They were just giving me an update because the doctor just saw my aunt, and et cetera, et cetera. But the care in some of them here in locally is awful. I'll tell you that right now. It's awful. They're short-staffed. That's another thing. You have to look at the staffing. You do have patients that are difficult. There's all kinds of things. I do think that you need to go in the nursing homes and see what the facility looks like, how clean it is, and things like that. But nursing home care does concern me. And the next is, how can we encourage our youth to take apprentice jobs, where a job would make them apprentice, where they can learn a skill that pay them good money. I think that's one of the things that could help with funding for that. I think you talked about education and what it costs for funding. We should also fund people who do not want to go to college. Do an apprenticeship as soon as they get out of college. As soon as they get out of high school, and so they can, whatever they like to do, electricity, whatever it is, do an apprenticeship. That's been weighing on my mind, to encourage people to do so they can make money. And the liquor bill, that's my last one. My favorite one. I think that when I was on the city council, we talked about towing. I never thought I'd be dealing with towing cars and stuff. Now I get on this council, and we're talking about liquor. So I'm not, I support business going to the wholesaler and getting their alcohol. I do support that. But I'm concerned, I have a concern that every year something's going to come up about alcohol. And I'm concerned that it's going to trickle down in the poor neighborhoods and increase crime. That's my main concern. I won't support bills that I'm afraid, and I hate to say this, I don't trust people because they say one thing and come up with another. So that's one of my things. But I think we talk about drugs and everything, and we promote alcohol. What's the difference? That's my point, And I drank until my heart, I'm scared to death. But alcohol among young people is increasing every year. You got the colleges, you got the high school students are acquiring alcohol. So you open the door for more alcohol in these beer and wine places. There's beer and wine, that's alcohol. Why do you have to have liquor? That's what I don't understand. And I will not support those kind of things, because I'm concerned about our youth. That's all I can say.
I could take you had 4 questions, so I'll very quickly go through those because you were raising questions that actually made the case for why we need to work together in the interim. On cost of living, one of the reasons why we weren't able to focus as much on ratepayer relief and some of the other cost of living issues is because we were tied up in the beginning of the session on immigration bills at the federal level, which we really should be focused on at the state level, and on redistricting, which meant there were missed opportunities for both energy relief and for the budget and where we could do more for our constituents. So I want to highlight that. I did want to note, because you mentioned housing, it was Wicomico County and Salsbury that came forward and asked this delegation to support the Salsbury Neighborhood Housing Services Property Tax Credit, which we were able to move forward. And that's another example of we worked on it during the interim. There was actually local consensus on it, and we were successfully able to move that forward. I'm on the committee that has oversight of housing issues, and I look forward to working more closely at the local level to see what can work for us that's fair to all, fair to tenants, fair to property owners. There's a way to work through these bills. So I'm going to continue to offer that. You mentioned, well, as soon as you said apprenticeships, you were singing my song. I was fortunate to serve on the 2030 Apprenticeship Commission, which is really focused on getting both our schools and higher education and employers to work together for that practical experience. And we have increased the number of apprenticeships across the state. And I specifically want to give credit right here on the shore with Warwick Community College, University of Maryland Eastern Shore, and Salsbury University are all involved in those efforts with the Tri-County Council, which several of the members here serve on. So there are absolute opportunities to move forward if we can get that local consensus. And finally, on your liquor, alcohol, and I've always said this from the very beginning when I first served as a delegate before I was a senator, there's no easy liquor bills, ever. But if there's a way to work through them, which we have done in other counties on other issues, that you can build that consensus that it's fair all the way around, you can move forward with those bills. That we obviously saw that we had to pull. One was pulled back because it hadn't been worked through. You can use the interim to work through some of those issues. And with Delegate Cherie Sample Hughes as a subcommittee chair in leadership, there's that opportunity to do that. So I hear you, and I think, if anything, you made the case for why there should be more local collaboration before we go into session to have some of these tougher issues teed up for all of us.
Yeah, and I want to add one point, and I didn't bring this up when I was first in the intro, but and I don't take credit for a lot of things, but Delegate Hutchinson was talking about the hospice bill, and then Delegate Sample Hughes had a bill dealing with nursing homes. I was able to save those. They were dying on the last day. I was able to get them out of committee the day of the last day, but you should pay attention to that bill that Delegate Sample Hughes has done. It's a really good bill. And what it does for the first time is it's giving our local health offices a say in the process of looking into what's going on in nursing homes. Because in the past, when we ever try to get involved, you have to go to the state. It has to go through the state, and the local health office knows there's problems, but they can't do anything because it's all regulated by the state. Well, we got that bill through. And now the state has to report to the local health office every time there's an incident. That it doesn't sound like much, but it is a huge shift in policy to empower local health offices. And most counties aren't paying attention to this. So I would, it behooves everyone on the council to be aware of that. So when you get complaints, your health officer ought to know about those complaints. And that is a camel's nose for us, because they don't, the Maryland Department of Health has put up a steel wall about counties getting involved in regulating nursing homes. Montgomery County used to pay for its own inspections for its nursing homes, and the State Department of Health shut that down. And I mean, the entire Montgomery County delegation and the General Assembly, we address the Department of Health down every time this issue comes up. And this is a big deal for local government and what's going on in nursing homes. So I want to make sure you're aware of that. It's a good thing. It's a very good thing.
Delegate Adams.
I'll just, on the housing part, I mean, we have as an example, southern Delaware, Sussex County, and housing from my perspective, and I just want to add, DHCD does not have the ability to say in a market-wide exercise, how do we increase housing? There's focused approaches, low-income housing tax credits, other forms of subsidy comes through federal grants that are administered through DHCD. What I'm talking about are market-based decisions where developers have the ability to take risk and develop housing, because when you create housing, notwithstanding the size of the house, where it's located, what you're doing is you're creating a dynamic marketplace for people to move up into housing. Those homes that are vacant then become sold or become rental properties. And so on that level, when I see housing, I don't see it through the lens of how can government help. What I can say is how can government get out of the way? That's how you solve that in the long run. The other exercise I think is worth discussing when it comes to affordability. Think of it through the lens of what's the cost of housing plus utilities, plus going to the grocery store, plus property taxes. All these things weigh. And so when you talk about owning a house, somebody can absolutely say, I would love to own a house. But if they're being smart and thoughtful on it, a lot of people are saying, I can't afford to even consider the conversation because of the place we're in, which comes to your final point about wages and youth and apprenticeship and then what's happening in the market, because Maryland is so backwards that we do not have a dynamic, growing economy of jobs for the Eastern Shore. That gets solved in the long run, not in the short run. The state of Maryland has spent far too much time worried about how to grow our economy through the lens of Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Washington-style jobs, okay, at the expense of the private sector. These things took a long time to get to where we are today. It'll take a long time to fix it. But what you don't do is you don't fix it by saying we're going to raise wages to $25 an hour, because guess what? Those jobs for the entry level, somebody learning how to do a job, which could be working at a McDonald's instead of it being like a kiosk now, somebody working out in the field, which now at $20 an hour is unworkable for a small business owner that's trying to teach somebody a job. People have to have the ability to grow their skill set, as you've mentioned, through apprenticeship. It can also just be through the lens of what's it take to be a good, productive laborer, worker, leader. Those things happen through showing the employer, showing other people how good they are at their job, which can start with showing up work on time and putting a good 8-hour job. Those are the things that, if I answer your question honestly, the state of Maryland gets it so backwards, it gets it so wrong, it sends the wrong message. We're not going to fix it anytime soon, which should be a sad indictment of your concern, because I think your concern comes from the right place. But there are other states that do get it right. I wish Maryland would spend a little bit more time thinking about how can we emulate other states like Tennessee, Florida, Utah. It's low taxes, light regulation, a welcoming environment for their citizens to come to the state of Maryland, not this exodus that we have currently of businesses and people leaving our state.
We have time restrictions, Dave, and I know Jeff and Jim.
Okay, and I realize
James.
we are pushing on for time. At the summer Mako conference, there was a gentleman from Exelon who addressed us at a breakfast meeting, and he made a pretty dire warning, basically I would say a looming crisis about the need for energy generation. And you spoke a minute ago about the cost, the energy bills that are going to go up, but he also alluded to the fact that we are not keeping up with demand and could very likely experience outages, brownouts, whatever the case may be. So my question is, what is the, this may be a loaded question, limiting factor to keep us from, or the state of Maryland from pursuing either nuclear, natural gas, and gosh forbid, coal, but in any case, what's the landscape like as far as finding energy generation or someone to provide that?
I went to an energy summit, and basically 40% of our energy for the PJM, the grid, is produced in Pennsylvania by coal.
Yeah.
So, as much as we're anti-coal burners, or, everybody wants to be, anti-coal, the fact of the matter is 40%. And Pennsylvania says that if Maryland and some of the other states don't get the regulations right, they're going to pull out. Now you're going to talk about, some rolling blackouts. That's going to be a real issue. And to me, when you look at that and you look at supply and demand, I'm not opposed to wind. I'm not opposed to solar by any stretch. But what I am opposed to is pulling a power plant like Indian River offline before you have everything else in place. Now, I am opposed to wind in the ocean, and I'm opposed to solar on our farmlands. There are plenty of other places, and I basically stood, when I was trying to get some of these regulations pulled back, I said, how about the medians in the highways? How about on top of every government office building? How about, all the large parking lots, that are already impervious surface? Salsbury University gets it right. They've got those solar panels there on College Avenue, and to me, that's the direction to head in.
I'm going to be very brief. I'm on the committee that has oversight over energy, and Senator Mounts alluded to this in his earlier response. We actually had proposals and amendments to this comprehensive energy bill. I actually voted for the Senate energy bill because it included some of these issues about energy generation in the state of Maryland. Unfortunately, in the negotiations and during an election year, they got taken out. I voted against the final energy bill. But my point is, and I can tell you from working directly with my chair, Brian Feldman, they are going to look at some of the proposals that we put out there. And you were looking for specifics, some of what we were talking about, we have to have honest and candid conversations about rebalancing the renewable energy mandates. Not eliminating them, rebalancing them, that you can still make your environmental goals, but not at the rate that we are, which is simply, not feasible. That's one proposal. Others, we talked about pausing or restructuring the Empower surcharge. We also talked about withdrawing Maryland from costly regional programs that end up costing our ratepayers. And then we talked about more incentives for in-state generation for natural gas and nuclear. So again, this is all coming back. This is not one-shot session, and we're going to go right back to these very reasonable proposals. But we're going to need to hear from you at the county level to say that, at the county level, you're supporting proposals that increase in-state generation. That at the county level, you are willing to support rebalancing these renewable energy mandates instead of not eliminating, because I know then the environmental groups will attack you, but rebalancing them so we can get that balance. So we will need you engaged in that, and you were absolutely spot on with your question, because we have to increase energy generation in the state of Maryland.
30 seconds. And I'm just going to say, Vienna is a good example of what Senator Crows is talking about. That is a diesel-generated emergency backup. So when that's running, you should be concerned, because without that running, you're going to have some brownouts, rolling blackouts. That's the reality of it. Why are we not considering converting that facility into a natural gas facility? I'm just asking the question. You've heard what Senator Crows has said, Delegate Beecham said. Those are things that the state of Maryland, it would take a few years to get there. Why not? What's the point? And so Indian River's out. That's one of the big reasons why we don't generate, and therefore we have to bring it from out of state to create the generation of energy, which is why it's so expensive. You know how easy it would be to have a pro-administration for energy creation, converting Vienna into something other than burning diesel for emergency only? I'm sorry, it's a rhetorical.
It's an opportunity.
It's an opportunity.
We debated this bill on the Senate floor, and the discussion was about why certain things are, and the discussion of the advocates want this and the advocates want that. And I said, the advocates are the ratepayers. Who is speaking up for the ratepayers?
Nobody.
And, these amendments that Senator Crozier was talking about, they're not advocating for repealing forward-thinking, environmentally friendly concepts. All they are doing is pausing them or resetting them to a reasonable standard. The governor is partly to blame for this. I mean, when he came into office, he put an executive order out that says 100% renewable energy by by, I think it's 2036 or 2036, and then
Increased it.
and then he set that time frame back, and then said zero greenhouse gases by 2045. Well, if we ever wanted to create a gas powered energy generation on the Eastern Shore, no bank in the world would finance that. And you would need bank to finance it. And the reason they wouldn't finance it is because Maryland has said, we're not going to have anything but renewable energy after 2035. Wow. Having these policies in place, they're sending messages to advocates, but they're undermining the individuals that are supposed to be getting represented and being served. It's a very frustrating thing. So, the advocates are the ratepayers, and the ratepayers are furious. And the quick answer is make your voice heard. And to the right entities. Who's making these decisions? And for me, a lot of this comes from the top, and the leadership from the governor on this has been, renewable green now immediately, and no discussion about the cost. And now all of a sudden, oh wait a minute, we're going to save the ratepayers, and we go through a whole session, and we're probably going to have more increases. That's unacceptable to me as a ratepayer, and as a representative, it's very, very frustrating.
Time for one more, Jeff. I know you had.
Thank you all for fighting for our shore way of life. I know it's tough. Do you see any course correction on how we're dealing with youth crime and violence? It seems like that's a big challenge up in Annapolis.
The answer is no. The answer is that we actually went the wrong direction after understanding that juvenile justice reform created the problem that we have. I'll allow others who have more expertise on this to opine further, but we actually did not resolve the fundamental issue, which is gangs are using children to run their drugs, to commit the crimes, because juveniles would not be treated as adults in some of these worst acts of violence. We have, a legislature, have decided that we're going to take a bad person that does evil things and treat them the same as a good kid that made a bad mistake. And that policy is detrimental to law enforcement. It's unhealthy from a public safety perspective. And think about the children who are being abused by people in the worst way possible. And you're telling me government can't get the policy perspective correct on this? It breaks my heart. Maryland is so wrong to allow children to be used this way. And that's the right political approach to enter this engaging conversation, is to say the legislature is allowing this to happen, and the results are what they've made it. Okay?
I'm always going to not leave us in the valley and look for the silver lining. The losers in this 2026 Maryland General Assembly was law enforcement and the ratepayers. Those were missed opportunities because we spent so much time on other issues that we didn't focus on those priorities. When it comes to your specific question about youth crime, it was a tough session because we went in the wrong direction. As far as that, I think we're all in agreement that we're talking about the violent juveniles. That's what we're talking about here. They're the ones that we need to be kind of separated out. The others, we do want to put on a path to be back in society and to support them for the future. Where the silver lining is, you in Wicomico County have one of the strongest state's attorneys in the entire state. And I can tell you, she has been up there in person. She knows these issues. And we just talked about, prior to coming up here, I thanked her personally for her support for taking that Wicomico roadway pedestrian safety bill, a targeted local bill, and working through the issues and pushing it over this time. And I said to her, there are opportunities on other bills, and I think juvenile crime is one of them, to take a really targeted approach, and whether it's something we do locally or something that we could take statewide, but we have partners here. So again, we have to prioritize youth crime. But I think we can do so in a way that Wicomico County is a partner in moving forward.
Do this. James, I know had a question, and I think Joe does. I like a question with one answer, because we seriously do have to close the session.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that. Mine is just, I'm just going to try and state this. I think it would be good if the state could work with the counties on when we award grants for, like, let's just say ag use things. I'm just going to use a biorefinery as an example. That the state would be mandated to have to tell the county that they've given a grant. That way we know ahead of time to look to make sure that the zoning is right. So if that could be something that everyone here could take a note of, take back, and maybe do something behind the scenes to make a regulation or some sort of policy that says we're going to have to notify each county to make sure that they are aware of something coming into their neighborhood, that they could be ahead of it. Instead of a surprise, we got something coming up down the street and we found out from the neighborhood. So it's not directed towards you all, it's just something that needs to be worked on. Thank you.
Noted. Thank you.
I have a quick response. Quick response is, that's a very complicated but very logical, pragmatic recommendation. Annapolis is a difficult place, and I just want to highlight Bruce Bariano has been representing Wicomico County, and he's been an enormous asset, I know, in a number of bills that I was working on dealing with the county. And to pursue something like that, to have the help and support, you wouldn't believe the little things that type of extra help can get you to the finish line. It makes perfect sense, but we definitely, I want to highlight the role that Bruce played last session, Mr. Bariano, and trying to implement something like that and execute it in one legislative session.
Senator Joe.
Yeah, real quick, I'll be brief. When you're talking about solar, you can't blame a farmer for wanting to go with solar, after he's trying to farm and losing money. Everything seems to be working against him. Are you all aware of how many thousands of acres in Wicomico County are in CREP land, which is land that the farmers are being paid not to farm, or all the land at the Nature Conservatory? We had a farm right down the road from where I live, 300 and some acres of farmland that the Nature Conservatory took out of production, and they get a lot of their money from the government. So you can't blame a farmer or a landowner, if he's not farming and a farmer's offering him a couple $100 an acre to farm his land, and a solar company comes along and offers him more than $1,000 or $2,000. You can't blame them for that. So the solar thing is a pretty tough one to crack.
Could I comment on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I can't say as I blame a landowner. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is our local zoning laws, they've worked pretty well all these years. So now we're going to circumvent them? To me, I'm just looking at what's worked all these years, and now you're saying, well, we don't really, let the state just dictate and let the landowner do what they want. Well, if that's the case, then why don't you just let me develop whatever I want, without any zoning, applied to it also. I mean, to me, that one doesn't have anything to do with the other. To me, I don't blame the landowner, but most of the landowners that are doing this aren't farmers, because a true farmer is going to farm his land, and he wants his children to farm that land, and he wants to feed, people. But, the CREP program and, exactly what you're speaking of, I just know from the poultry industry that they import corn and grain to supply. So maybe we should take a look at that also,
The largest solar field right now being planned in Wicomico County is by a farmer. He's active farmers wanting to put one in. So,
I'll just be very brief and close out. I think you raise a good point, and no one blames the farmer. I think what we're trying to do is, the policies are out of whack right now, because it's dictated with all the emphasis on renewable, and then the incentives that are given to the solar industry that then allow them to give, those offers to that. If we can get back into balance, because a farmer should have the right, if there's a portion of his land, not a big section, that's not usable for ag and wants to do it for solar, there should be opportunities there. But I think what we're talking about is this balance where that the way that the policies are written now, you have the opportunity where, our farmland, could be overtaken by solar because of the policies. If you can balance those, which is why we were trying to do with that legislation to bring those percentages down. So I understand your point, and also it could open up other opportunities for solar that's less objectionable, like commercial warehouses that are on rooftops that no one sees, so, anyway.
Punch in the nose.
Again, thank you all.
Okay.
We appreciate the time.
Thank you, but
Thank you.
these are good questions that we want to work with you on these policies. So.
Right, and I've appreciated all the conversations that I've been able to have over this last term with each of you, and I know we've had a few conversations. I think overall, above everything else, local autonomy is important to the local jurisdictions. As you've stated here earlier, they're destroying our planning and zoning, no matter what we think, and it's the local government that recognizes what's really needed in their local community, not the state of Maryland. But they're choosing to take away those rights, as you know. In solar, they're choosing to take away those rights of planning and zoning as two major items. So whatever, working with Mako and working with Wicomico County, be glad to move that forward in the next session. But thanks again for all your time and your work. Very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
President Cannon, as I said, I certainly hope that all of us are returning next year. I'm sorry, Josh, for saying that, but I know some of you may not be returning next year, so I just want to thank you for all the service that you've given to the county, and we'll miss seeing you up there at the desk when we get back here next year. Thank you.
Hey, I just want to take a second I know there'll be some changes, but this will be our last legislative, I call it legislative recovery, legislative wrap-up to be able to come in and talk with you. And I just want to thank you for all your support, all your guidance over the years. It's been tremendous, and it's deeply appreciated. A great service. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Hurley.
Okay, next is the submission of the fiscal year 27 operating and capital budget.
Yeah.
Big, thick books.
Is that lunch?
Well, you're welcome to eat it if you'd like.
You need to pass them out.
It's not as thick as it used to be.
Okay.
Josh, that baby weighed when you got him.
Another week.
This is good. Set this up. So catch down.
Just get this
One down.
Can you handle that?
You get that one.
Yes.
Benson, get one.
No.
Okay.
Thank you. You want to trade?
I got one. Benson.
Change the Bob doesn't.
Yeah, man, he's spiffing up a little more all the time. Yeah.
Pam, this is the submission of the operating and capital budget. I know it's a very, very quick review.
I'm waiting for Julie. Give me one second.
Okay.
Should have had this. We should have had this before this meeting. Lord, have mercy.
Still morning.
Yes.
Good morning. Good morning. All right.
Yes.
Julie Giordano, County Executive. Pam Olin, Finance Director.
All right, good morning, County Council. We are here submitting the budget, so I hereby submit to the County Council and the public my proposed budget for the fiscal year 2027, commencing July 1st, 2026, and ending June 30th, 2027. Before we even get into anything, I just want to say thank you, to the citizens specifically who offered their feedback during the public hearing on March 11th, 2026. In accordance with the county charter, the proposed budget is balanced. It reflects a responsible use of available resources to deliver essential services to our residents. As discussed during the public hearing, the state of Maryland continues to shift financial obligations from the state level to local governments, placing additional pressures on county budgets. But at the same time, I'm really proud of this budget because we were able to make record investments to the Board of Education, Public Safety, and of course our other county departments. Just skipping ahead a little bit, just to give you a brief highlight on some things, this budget fully funds maintenance of effort as well as the requested increase of funding to education. In addition, their funding would include the amount to start the implementation of our school weapons detection. This is going to start mid-year at the board's identified Tier 1 schools. It also includes the forward funding for Fruitland, and as well as the capital ask for Fruitland Intermediate. So we're really proud of that. In addition to fulfilling the above requests, a significant number of departments received their full operating expense budgets. Funding per station for volunteer and city fire has increased, and funding increases were also included for Warwick Community College, the Public Library, PAC 14, the Humane Society, and SWED. And the other thing I just wanted to say is that Wicomico County continues to meet its obligations directly and responsibly, despite increasing pressures from the state and rising costs associated with attracting and retaining qualified employees. This proposed budget reflects both top priorities of this administration and the needs expressed by our residents, while also incorporating a strategic use of fund balance and a fiscally responsible approach to managing our current resources. And to go over a couple other highlights, I'm going to turn it over to our finance director.
So the estimated revenue in this budget is $237 million, which is a $21 million growth, about 9% growth over last year. Majority of that growth is related to using prior year fund balance. We have PAYGO capital in this budget of over $25 million and operating capital for a total use of fund balance of $33 million. And when we have work sessions, I can discuss how we feel that that is an affordable ask and usage of our fund balance. With the rising assessments grew 7%, but our revenue can only grow 2%. So we are decreasing the tax rate again this year. We are going down a full 3 cents on the tax rate. And as such, that also means that our tax rate for personal property is going down as well, because the state law is you can only have your personal property tax rate for counties be 2.5 times your real property tax rate. So that number is going down as well. So the tax rate for personal property is going from $2.0247 to $1.94797 in this budget. On the revenue side, though, based on continued strong growth in income tax, we are growing our income tax estimate by $10 million. This is the first fiscal year that income tax as one number is larger than our full property tax. Last year, income tax was budgeted to be higher than our real property, but personal property with the two together was still larger. This fiscal year, income tax is our single largest source of revenue for the county, estimated at $84 million. The expense budget then is balanced. It's a $237 million expense budget. As the executive stated, we are funding MOE. We're funding the growth aspects that they asked for above MOE. We're funding the Tier 1 schools for weapons detection. So that has a capital impact that you will see on the capital budget, as well as having an operational number that is above the number that they've asked for MOE and growth, because they, in their budget, were not able to afford to do the people needed without additional funding for those people to monitor those systems. We are proposing debt, again, a debt borrowing in the fall, but we are well below our principal and interest policy. Our policy is 12% of of new revenue, and our budget is only at 6.38%. Employee compensation, you have on the council agenda the FOP agreement. This budget does include that information for that salary scale in here. Additionally, for most other employees, we provided a 2% COLA, 2% COLA, 3% step, and emergency services, we are providing an 8% growth on their pay scale to try to retain the people that we have in that department. As with years past, specific salary changes associated with grade changes and/or new positions are on Exhibit E, and the position control document is on Exhibit F. Exhibit F only is so if we have a position that is currently at a grade 34 and we're recommending it to go to a grade 35, the position control document only gives it the standard growth. The change to the grade and everything is listed on Exhibit E. Exhibit F, which is the position control document, only has salary changes on it. It does not have any grade, new positions, or title changes on it. With the growth in salaries between the sheriff's office and between all of our employees, to continue the progress we have made on our pension plan to get it more fully funded, we have grown the amount that we are going to budget to give to the pension by $1.5 million, so that we can continue the growth to try to get this funded between 80 and 100% funding on the pension. Recreation and Parks, we will be coming, their budget is balanced. Their budget is balanced by having some additional rate increases for specific programs based on costs to run those programs and/or new programs associated with their department. Solid Waste, we are continuing the recommendation for twice-a-year growth on their rates because we have significant capital needs, and as required by law, we are required to maintain cash for post-closure costs. And right now, we have about a $7 million fund balance, but if we don't continue to, we have about a $4 million need in usage to continue the construction projects out at the solid waste. So we are recommending a July increase to, I think it's 94, and in January up to 100. And even with those increases, that is not sufficient revenue to cover the full costs of that department. We are going to use fund balance to balance their budget. That is not a sustainable path, and as such, we are recommending that those increases continue to happen. That is the main budget highlights. We will gladly meet with council at any work sessions that you have. There are a couple dates that either finance and/or administration have conflicts, so I will work with Mrs. Hurley to ensure that we are available for the dates that you guys schedule, but we will gladly meet with you and answer any questions that you have at that time. Thank you.
Thanks.
The question I'd have, because this is a surprising increase. It's about a $20 million increase in the budget. So it's about a 10% increase in the budget, which is $20 million. Our income tax receipts appears to me just off the cuff is about an increase of $10 million from the prior year, and your property taxes are usually between $2 and $3 million. So the best case scenario of increased revenue from our major funding sources is about $13 million, but we're budgeting $20 million. I'm assuming you're saying 7 million may be coming from reserves. I'm hoping those reserves that you're spending aren't going to be used to try to offset the operating budget
There's-
itself or recurring expenses.
No,
At all.
they're 100%, so 100% of the reserve usage that we have budgeted, which is about $30 million, is coming from fund balance and relates to operating capital and/or regular capital projects. It does not, we are not balancing this budget for operating expenses with fund balance.
Good. All right, thank you all
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Mrs. Hurley?
Okay, next for your consideration is Resolution Number 63-2026. This is to implement the collective bargaining agreement between Wicomico County, Maryland, Office of the Sheriff of Wicomico County, and the Wicomico County Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge Number 111.
Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 63, 2026.
So move.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Alchek, good to see you again.
Thank you, sir. Good
If you could just state for the record your name, your company would be great.
Sure. Dan Alchek with Saul Ewing.
Thank you. We do have of course, we do have the collective bargaining agreement with us. I know we've had the prior discussion. You did answer some of the questions, Mr. Alchek, in reference to, I guess, the letter that was an amendment to the overall agreement as a whole. I did not get a chance or the opportunity, I believe. You sent us a lot of links as far as other instances whereby there were similar addendums presented with the collective bargaining agreement. I think at the last minute, possibly yesterday, there was an additional question, or actually a question that was missed, which was, I believe you had said at the prior meeting that there were several examples whereby when you have a 3-year agreement, it's agreed upon that there would be annual reviews. And I don't know, I didn't have a chance to read your email that came in this morning, if that referenced it, if you could help us with that.
Sure, I'm happy to. And yes, I did just sent an email a little while ago. I received Mr. Benson's follow-up question Friday afternoon, and I hadn't had an opportunity to respond to it until today. So what I sent in my email today, which is I think maybe being passed around now, but I'll just say it, and hopefully it'll be the same thing. Is that I have not had a chance to look through all of the collective bargaining agreements that I provided links to in my letter from last week. I did notice, sort of on a quick review, that there was a group of CBAs from Prince George's County that had an attachment. It wasn't styled as a side letter, but it was an attachment to the CBA that provided for the county and the union, and I think it's in 3 of their CBAs, so each of the unions agreed to the same thing, to enter into negotiations over their performance appraisal system or process. So that was that was a provision for negotiations during the term of the CBA to negotiate a new provision for the CBA. That was one example. Also, I added in my email, there were a few CBAs that I think I didn't list in my letter last week, but that do have reopener provisions, just ones that I'm familiar with myself. The Salsbury City CBAs, each of the 3 CBAs it has with its unions that were entered into basically 2 years ago. Those were 2-year contracts that had a reopener for wage increases after 1 year. So it was a 2-year contract. I had a wage increase in the first year. The whole contract stayed in effect for 2 years, but after the first year, the parties reopened and sat back down to fully negotiate through the point of impasse if it came to that wage increases for the second year of the contract. There's reopener provisions in the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission, WSSC, which is the wastewater utility for Montgomery County and Prince George's County. It's a big entity with, I think, a couple $1 billion budget, and 2 unions, Teamsters Union and ASME Union, that has wage reopener provisions. The public library system in Baltimore City, the Pratt Free Library, their union contract had a reopener provision for not only wage increases in the second and third year of the contract, but also to conduct actually to form a working group that would commission a salary study to look at sort of overhauling their pay structure for the unionized employees. And then that agreement said that there would be a reopener and bargaining over the results of the salary study. So kind of similar in that, the idea of a working group to what we have here. So those are some examples.
But it stays within that narrow scope.
Yes.
It doesn't open anything else up.
Correct. And so the other point that I mentioned in my email, thank you, is that I just wanted to clarify again, because I know there's a sort of a lot of things that were discussed at the last time I was before you. The side letter, the effect of the side letter is that it does a few things. It's sort of in sequence. First, there's a working group with representatives of the FOP and the county executive to sort of study this issue of the accidental disability benefit, which is part of the pension plan. Then, when that kind of study and analysis is done, it says that either party can, we use the term, I think, reopen for negotiation over that issue. So it's limited only to the issue of the accidental disability benefit within the scope of the pension plan. It does give either the FOP or the county executive the right to reopen, to negotiate, but then it says that if those negotiations don't result in an agreement, if they sort of get to impasse, they're done. Nothing happens. So I'm bringing that up just to make clear that the 3-year CBA is 3 years. The pension provisions and the accidental disability provisions are 3-year provisions. Everything is in effect for 3 years. The only thing that could happen is if either party reopens, and then there's negotiations, and then there's an agreement on some type of modification to the accidental disability benefit, then it would go to you, to the county council, to decide whether you approve it or not. So if all of those things do not happen, then it's a 3-year contract and nothing changes.
Would the approval process coming back to the county council, would that be subject as well as to arbitration, or would that be a negotiating factor with the resolution I'm assuming we would pass, legislation or bill, whichever?
It would not be subject to arbitration. And that is stated and understood, and it's explicit. If it has to be, the county executive and the FOB have to agree for anything to even come to you. If they don't agree, the negotiations sort of, for lack of a better word, die. They stop until the next contract renegotiation in 3 years.
So if they agree, and then they come to us, but the council doesn't want to reopen it, where do we go there?
Well, so what they would come to you with is, it would be that the executive and the union came to some agreement on a modification to the accidental disability benefit. They present that modification to you. If you don't want to adopt it, you don't.
It just dies.
And it's over. It's
And
over.
we don't go to arbitration, we just stick with the 3-year deal, and then we renegotiate at the end?
Exactly.
Okay, all right.
Anybody? Yes, Josh.
Just for clarity, I think that sounds good. Just for clarity, why would that happen? Why would the situation come up that it needs to be adjusted annually? Is there a particular, does that happen regularly in other jurisdictions? And if so, what's the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, our biggest concern was where the payment comes from. So in one agreement, the full amount was coming from the Accidental Disability Trust. Then we looked at potentially using part of that payment to come from the pension and the trust. And then the FOP decided that they wanted the full amount to come from the trust because it would all be tax-free. Anything that comes from our pension has to be taxed. So for it to be a full 66 2/3 tax-free, it has to come from the trust. Our fear is that if we continue down that road, that it might not be a solvent pension, or, it might not be a solvent trust. So what may have to happen is the FOP may have to contribute more, the county may need to contribute more. We would just have to look at the solvency of the trust with all of the payment coming out of it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
James?
Yeah, the other question I have, and I just want to make sure that I'm on the same page. So if the FOP and the county executive's department have an issue and they figure out what the issue is and they decide to reopen it, come to the council, and it's only one topic, it's only one thing, right? So we're not reopening the whole thing, we're just going to try and laser focus fix the one issue instead of having to renegotiate everything.
100%. It is that is a limited.
wanna-
Yes, absolutely. No, I'm glad to clarify.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that concern. We would not want that at all. And it's a limited reopener solely on the subject of the accidental disability benefit.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing none, all those in favor of Resolution 63, 2026, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution passes unanimously. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Resolution Number 64-2026. This is to appoint the Board of Managers of various public drainage associations within Wicomico County.
Entertain a
And we
motion-
have Pam Olin here.
Thank you. Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 64, 2026.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution passes unanimously.
Next is Resolution Number 65-2026. This is to certify the drainage tax roll to the Director of Finance as requested by the Board of Managers at the Public Drainage Associations.
Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 65, 2026. Second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution passes unanimously.
The next item for business is Resolution Number 66-2026. This is approving a 5-year contract with NWN Corporation and Carousel Industries of North America in the amount of $308,614.28 for the purchase of a Motorola Vesta 911 Managed Detection and Response Plus system. And this is Mr. Lorenzo Cropper, our Director of Emergency Services, and we do have Mr. Daniel Hyman with NWN Corporation on Zoom.
Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 66-2026. Second.
Second.
Any discussion, any questions for Director Cropper? Any comments?
Yes, sir.
All those in favor of Resolution 66, 2026, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution passes unanimously. Thank you. Thanks for waiting.
Okay, next is Resolution Number 67-2026. This is approving a zoning waiver for the City of Salsbury, lands of Nicholas Venzo, North Shoemaker Drive annexation in the City of Salisbury. And we have Ms. Tracy Taylor here, Director of Planning, Zoning, and Community Development.
A motion for council to approve Resolution 67, 2026.
Move.
Second?
Second.
Motion second. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Tracy Taylor, Wicomico County Planning Director. I also think we have some members from the City of Salisbury, DID staff, that are here for this request as well, in case you had any questions specific to the City of Salisbury.
Could you ask the gentleman to come up? Yeah.
Nick Wojtek, the Director of DID for the City of Salisbury.
Nick, if you could just state your name, your position, that'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah, Nick Wojtek, Director of Infrastructure and Development for City of Salisbury.
Thanks for being here.
Of course.
So we're here today because we have a proposed annexation by the City of Salisbury. It's the lands of Nicholas Fenzel, North Shoemaker Drive annexation. It's an approximately 13-acre parcel, and it's being proposed for development with 60 townhomes. The property is currently R20 zoning in the county, and the proposal for this property now, the proposal's changed somewhat, you saw in the email that I sent you. But the recommendation of the Planning Commission was for R10A zoning in the city. The job of the planning and zoning staff for the county is to review these annexations based off state law to determine if the proposed municipal zoning results in uses that are substantially different than the county zoning or result in a greater than 50% increase in the proposed density. In this case, the staff found that in both cases, it needed a waiver. The uses that are proposed within the municipal zoning could include apartment complexes, townhomes, parks and playgrounds, schools of special instruction, and the R20 zoning district for the county. None of that is allowed as a permitted use. We only allow for single-family dwellings, so that's a substantial change in the uses. And then, of course, the density is greater than a 50% increase from what the county zoning, would allow. So in that case, we recommended that a waiver be granted on both substantial uses and also for greater than 50% increase in density. In addition to that, we also look at, for purposes of our review, it is within a designated growth area. It is in the City of Salisbury's future growth area land use map. It's shown for low-density residential. In the city's comprehensive plan, low-density residential is defined as anything between 4 and 5 units per acre. This development would result in about 4.6 dwelling units per acre, which was within the range of the low-density residential as stated in the city's 2010 comprehensive plan. So it's in the growth area. The land use that it's designated for is low-density residential between 4 and 5 dwelling units per acre. This development will be 4.6 dwelling units per acre. It did have a little bit of a history before the Planning Commission. This came before the Planning Commission in August 2025 when the Planning Commission was still joint city-county. At that time, the City of Salsbury staff, in their staff report that I know you all have a copy of, the city staff proposed an R10S zoning district, which in the city would not allow for townhomes. It would allow for single-family dwellings. Under that category, the developer could have gotten potentially up to 56 dwelling units, single-family dwelling units on the site. And when I say up to, of course, that takes into consideration roads, stormwater management, things of that nature. So it could be somewhat less than the 56. The developer at the time came to the table at the Planning Commission and asked for, the request was for R8A zoning, which would allow up to 8 dwelling units per acre for a potential of 78 dwelling units. The Planning Commission debated the issue and discussed with the developer. There were people from the public, from neighboring residential subdivisions that got up to speak against the townhome development. They preferred single family. At that meeting, Councilman Holloway sits on the Planning Commission at that time, or sat on the Planning Commission at that time. He made a motion to support the DID staff's recommendation for the R10S. That motion failed for lack of a second. And then a second commissioner proposed a compromise position, which was the R10A. So the developer, I know this is confusing, the developer was proposing R8A, the staff was proposing R10S. So the Planning Commission member requested R10A. That motion was seconded and it was approved. And and under that zoning, the developer could get up to, I misspoke earlier, could get up to 78, but instead is proposing 60. So proposing less than what the zoning actually allows. By proposing the 60, it does fit within the low-density residential range of the comprehensive plan. And I'd be happy, and Nick is here to answer any additional questions. I just wanted to make sure that you had the full history of what this request encountered at the Planning Commission level. And in our review, we just review based off whether or not it needs a waiver and not whether or not I, as the planning director, make a recommendation on the waiver. That's the county council's decision, but I certainly will weigh in on anything that you ask me to.
Nick, why did the city recommend was it R10S over the other options?
I think part of the initial thought and consideration was what's in the surrounding area. The immediately adjacent development is a single-family development, so part of the thought was to try to hew a little more closely to matching up with that. At the same time, there are some other adjacent developments, kind of catty corner. Stonegate is an apartment development that has much higher density residential. In terms of the growth area, talking about the low density being 4 to 5 units per acre. In the future growth area, as we adopt our new comprehensive plan, we're actually proposing to increase low density to mean something higher and denser than that, and then is being proposed for this development more in the range of 8 units per acre. So while the initial thought was to try to match it to the immediately adjacent use, thinking about the larger neighboring area and future developments that are likely to come in the area, it made some sense to go along with this now after it's been through the process of planning commission of council.
Was there any environmental concerns due to the fact that it backs up right to the Shoemaker Pond?
There aren't any major concerns or any concerns really that has been brought up, and is a good question. MDE obviously has governance over environmental protections. If there are areas of special consideration for the state, they're going to govern that. There might be forest conservation issues that come in. There are a lot of different rules and they'd all have to be complied with, but adding the land at this zoning, at any other zoning, wouldn't change any of the rules. So they would have to be set back appropriately, handle the stormwater appropriately. So there's no concern.
And if you go down Shoemaker on the right, if you're headed east on Shoemaker on the right, there's single-family homes there. So it kind of seems odd that you would run past this single-family home development and then there would be townhomes. So I guess I see the reason you all did that. It fit into the area a lot better.
Yeah, it's slightly odd, but at the same time, it's something that probably, if we go over the map of the city, you'd probably encounter it in a few dozen places. So it's somewhat counterintuitive, but at the same time, not totally out of the ordinary.
If I may, we did a quick analysis, and on the north side of North Shoemaker, you have Canvasback, which are condos, Tide Mill, which are apartments, Stonegate, which are duplex townhomes, Spring Chase, which is duplex, Glen Heights, which is duplex. On the south side of North Shoemaker, we have Shoemaker Woods, which has 19 lots on 14 acres with about 1.3 dwelling units per acre. And then we have Granby's, which is 70 lots on 22.6 acres, which comes out to about 3.1 by comparison, just to give you that frame of reference. So for the single-family side of North Shoemaker, you have 1.3 up to 3.1. This would be 4.6.
So I guess in retrospect, we can say if we kept the south side of Shoemaker in a single-family type situation and the north side possibly in the other zoning would fit the area of what it's been so far. That's the way it is right now. Yeah. So.
I think you mentioned the R10S. That was single-family development, or that was a proposal, but it ended up being the R10A, which does allow the townhouse situation.
Sorry.
I'm not as concerned about the density, and it sounds like the developer has toned it down quite a bit to the 4.6, as I am with it being a townhouse. And this came at us fairly quickly. At least from my standpoint, I haven't had a chance to really evaluate what that looks like in terms of where there, to your point, Tracy, where there are townhouses and where there are single-family homes. But I'm a little bit hesitant for having the townhome situation there adjacent to the, to the R20, and understanding, there's been some resistance and some concerns about that aspect. And I would just like to, for my behalf, take a little bit of time to make sure I understand that and see whether it does make sense. What's contiguous to what, and otherwise I would be kind of against this proposal and going to town, seeing a townhouse right across from single family development.
Is there any extreme complications created if this is postponed or tabled for our next meeting?
Well,
I'm saying that in case, because I know
Right.
what Dave's just said there.
Right. Well,
Lack of notice, right?
the guidance from state law is that the city is to notify us 30 days prior to the required public hearing by the city council. And I think you've scheduled your public hearing, but I'm not positive on that.
Not sure if it's scheduled.
It would only be if they've already scheduled and advertised their public hearing. And I don't know if the city has done that.
If we choose to move forward with this, is there any way that, do we have the authority, maybe this goes to you, Mr. Wojtek, I'm not sure, but do we have the authority to maybe ask or require more sitescape, more landscaping to this development? From the schematic that we show, I see what I believe are tree structures within the development, but nothing on the edges of the development. And we've seen this more often than not now with properties that have recently been annexed in the city of Salsbury. I won't mention where, but two very large projects. And the most disconcerting thing that I'm finding that everybody is concerned about is that there are no trees. There's no landscaping there. There's nothing. You get the street, you get the curb, and you have the building. So would that authority, maybe I'll have to defer to Mr. Benson for another time, but I just really wish that the city would have a stronger policy on sitescapes when it comes to these type of developments. And I'm all for development, but I still think it's necessary to make a good development. I've been in areas where they make sure that they put very good sitescape, very good landscaping in front of it, whether it's a Walmart or whether it's a townhouse development. and it really makes a difference in the overall community as a whole, is what you see.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that check kind of lies with the Planning Commission, and they have the authority. It's sort of it's a decision that they're able to make and provide a lot of feedback on in terms of what the site's going to look like, what types of mitigation measures, buffers, landscaping have to go on. I think with the city's new Planning Commission that was created a few months ago, we all know that there was the split. They've been pretty aggressive in terms of asking for improvements, taking into consideration concerns of the neighbors, neighboring folks in the community, neighboring developments, and that's something that we also have become more aggressive on as a city staff of requesting pretty significant contributions and improvements to the area that's being developed. With the specific site, we've already talked to the developer's engineering firm about trying to leave as much of the tree growth at the backside of the site towards the pond as possible, both for stormwater environmental site design considerations, also just as a community benefit. We've also talked about trying to add more, whether it's landscaping with trees, whether it's open space for residents' uses, more of that space throughout the site. There's a large, if you've looked at the site plan, there's a huge easement at the front of the site, kind of cutting at an angle for overhead power lines. So we've spoken to them to try to make sure that there's some kind of programming or planting. It's very limited what you can do there since there's overhead power, but any type of walkways or anything beneficial for the public there. But again, that passes through the city staff review and recommendations. It passes through the Planning Commission's review with the preliminary comprehensive development plan, final comprehensive development plan, then subject to further city review. So we've gotten more aggressive over the past couple of years since I've gotten here in terms of requesting things like community impact statements as part of that process, requesting quality mitigation efforts. So I think I probably know some of the developments you're talking about that were approved quite a few years ago that are sort of barren, depressing
I guess my question would
wastelands.
be, if this council were to choose not to approve this, would that kill it entirely? Would that send it through the new cycle with the new Salsbury Commission as opposed to the prior commission?
So the annexation could and would still go forward, I suppose, unless the developer chose to pull it back. It would be approved, but the developer would be kind of stuck with the existing county R20 zoning for the next 5 years, which would make his project undevelopable. It would presumably be a holding pattern of 5 years waiting till he could do his project.
Well, you say undevelopable, but obviously I think it was developable because they already had the signs up promoting houses instead of townhouses. So I don't think it would make it
In the way that he's proposing. is what I
understood
meant to
on
say.
that. I guess my real question, though, is so that there isn't that 5-year period, and this may be for you, Tracy, if this weren't to go through today, would it then recycle back through with this commission, or would it be dead? What would the future be for the project?
If you did not grant the waiver to the zoning as proposed, then the 5-year rule that would be your action, that you didn't grant the waiver, and the 5-year rule would go in effect, and the R20 county zoning would remain on the property for 5 years. They could pursue the annexation still, it could be annexed into the city, but they couldn't develop it under city zoning. They could only have it developed under county zoning. And after 5 years, then they can develop under city zoning.
Even if it went back to the new commission, and the new commission made a new recommendation and brought the project, would it potentially bring that project back before the 5-year period?
That would be a legal question that I can't answer. I don't know if the applicant, once you deny the waiver to this zoning category, I don't know, Mr. Benson or Mr. Illuminati may have to answer whether they could then go back through the process and request a different zoning category.
Mr. Cannon.
You might have answered my question already, the question I'm about ready to ask already, but what came first? I assume the annexation was requested when the developer decided, for whatever reason, that they didn't want to go to single-family dwelling development. So in other words, correct me if I'm wrong, but the only reason the annexation was requested was in order to alleviate that situation, to provide that opportunity. Have I stated that correctly or not?
Normally, and as the case is here, annexation is requested to get the density that's needed to do a development because they need public sewer. So if they need public sewer to get the density, regardless of if it's single family or townhome. In this case, the developer has always proposed townhome. When the annexation comes to the municipality gets to make the determination of what zoning that they think is appropriate to apply to the land. When this went to Planning Commission for confirmation of the zoning and consistency is when the issue came up that what the city was recommending, the developer wanted a different zoning category, and that's when the Planning Commission decided to compromise and split the difference and go with the zoning as proposed. Regardless of whether it had gone single-family or multifamily or townhome, it probably still would have required a waiver because it's greater than 50% increase in what would have been allowed in the county. So we would still be here under any zoning category. Almost every annexation that the city or any of the municipalities do, more than likely is going to come here for a waiver because it's going to be greater than a 50% increase in density.
But the density, if I heard you right, the density the county allows is 4 to 5? Was it, did I hear that right now?
The comprehensive plan for the city defines low density as 4 to 5 dwelling units per acre, and this development is at 4.6. So technically, according to the city's current comp plan, this would meet the definition of their future land use. Their growth area plan in their comp plan for this parcel calls for low density residential, and it is within their municipal growth area, which means it is an area planned for future annexation.
I guess we did have an outpouring at the planning and zoning meeting of the folks in, what's that called, Gamby's Cove, the development right next to them, that were not happy about this going in that direction. They thought it should be single-family homes. So there was, I know this isn't a public hearing and it's not giving people a chance to speak, and maybe that's what we should have with this, as a public hearing, to give those neighbors a chance to speak on this. I don't know whether you want to do that, President Cannon, or set a public hearing on this.
If we were to table it today, we'd have plenty of time to.
I mean, it would only have to be advertised one time because there's no legal requirement to hold it. So we could schedule that for the next meeting if you want to.
Excuse me, I know it's not a public hearing, but as a developer, am I allowed to come to the table?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Brian Lloyd. I'm actually and I really appreciate y'all's time and the great questions that y'all are asking. Just a few points of clarity. You know, the history of this, we met with the Joint Commission. The Joint Commission recommended this. I'm not really sure if compromise is the appropriate word. And I don't know there was a compromise. I think the people that voted for the zoning that we've got were pretty unanimous. That was what they thought it should be, but Joe can speak to that. So I feel like, you know, we've done everything that we're supposed to do. The Planning Commission has made a recommendation. The city has approved the annexation. We've had our first reading so far.
I could also say that the city council did review specifically the zoning recommendation, and the city council unanimously agreed to the proposed zoning, the R10A.
Yeah, so I think, you know, and I could be wrong, so please correct me, because the last thing I ever want to be is disrespectful. I think what we're asking here is for a waiver. I think that's the role, isn't it, or not? Or is it still
the role
to
is to
speak
ask for the waiver?
or is it to speak to what should be there? Because I think what we're asking for is the waiver, not what. Because I think that I don't want to say that ship sailed, but that we went through all the process to get to this point. And now what we're looking for is the waiver, not what it should be townhomes or single family. Now let me just say this too, and Zach can certainly say this. The reason we want to do townhomes there is, one, because it fits within the comprehensive development plan. So we're not out of line as it comes to that. Again, 900 foot from this project are two higher density projects. And thank you so much for explaining. You did such a thorough job of that. Across the street. But I mean, we have higher density properties across the street. There's a very large piece of property that's across the street that at some point I'm sure will get annexed and will be high density as well. So, and then I think, you know, when you look at the history of, I think the neighborhood next to Granby's is Shoemaker Woods, I think. The similar pushback would have been, because that's, I think, a county subdivision. And so, I understand, I've lived here my whole life, so I understand that change is always difficult, for residents, and, but that would have been the same thing. Granby's developer came in here and wanted annexation and wanted waivers so they could get the density they need, because that's what it takes to do developments this day and age. But the other reason we wanted to do towns is to have, and I was corrected by one of the neighbors of Granby's, which was totally fine because he was accurate. We want to offer more affordable housing for residents of Salsbury. I can build single families here. So, typically a developer wants townhomes because he gets 70 more units than single family. No, it's 6. It's only 6 more. The reason I want to do the towns is because I can sell a product with a 2 in front of it, a 200,000 product, and it's probably going to be 259 or 279, which, John, you've been around long enough. When I built 30 years ago, the starter home was 159. It's not anymore. You can't afford to build it. So, we wanted to do towns because we wanted to have a product that someone could actually afford instead of paying $2,200 a month in rent. And when I build a single family home on that site, I can do it. It will be $360,000 at a minimum, and that might be with a single car garage. So that was some of the other reasoning, on that as well. So I just wanted to bring, some clarity on that and kind of our heart behind the project. Have no problem doing landscaping. Our projects have irrigation systems. We sod the front yards. We want to add to our community because we live here. That's always been our heart, and in all of our neighborhoods. So I just wanted to bring some clarity on some of those points, and then if anyone had any questions, just to be able to answer that, because I think it's a great project, and again, I think it fits within the comprehensive development plan for the city as well.
Thank you for your comments and your clarification. The reason that we are here, you're right, is to approve the waiver, but that is within our purview to do that. It's not one where we just say, well, the city's done it, the commission's done it. Okay, we approve their policies. I think you're going to find out that any government body is going to have their own personal preference on how they might want to view a project or anything else. So we do have to take that into consideration. And with our situation, really, is that this is something that I believe just within the last few days we've had emails or we haven't been fully informed as far as the true possible impacts. So we're trying to do our due diligence. I agree with the situation in one sense, is that you do have the Glade, maybe 1/10 of a mile behind this project, and then you have Tide Mill behind that, and across the street you do have Parkwood Apartments. And because I drove it because I wanted to see for myself whether or not this was truly impacting the nature of the neighborhood as a whole. I couldn't see where it was, because of the numerous developments that encircle the entire area. I think there are probably more townhouses by population than there are single-family homes in that immediate vicinity. Again, my only concern was in looking at the drawing that you provided, and the concerns that I shared earlier with Mr. Wojtek, was it's very disconcerting to me that we're not paying careful enough attention. And I support development, but just not paying careful enough attention to the landscaping, because you do see the good landscaping even at Parkside, at Glade, at Tide Mill, at every project that I've seen. They've paid attention to that, and I was just wondering why the city seems to have neglected that, and whether or not we had that authority to put that onus on you as a county body to say, we really would like to see some type of protective measures in place just for line of sight. Excuse me?
Yeah, and we'd be fine with that, of course.
John, I don't know if you went to the right place. There's nothing encircling this. You said there's apartments and development encircling this. I don't know if you went to the right place. There's nothing
There's 2 developments behind it.
There's nothing behind it except the pond. The pond's behind it.
No, the pond is south.
Yeah, behind it.
The pond is south. It's not behind it. The pond is south of it. Behind it, there's one street, if I have the right development, one street with single-family homes?
No.
John's right. The pond is behind it.
Yeah, the pond's behind it.
This is Granby's Cove, and this is the parcel right here.
There's nothing encircling
this. This is North Shoemaker, this is
Okay.
Granby's Cove, and this is.
God, I'm so far off base. I apologize on that. So, oh my God.
Even
Wow, thank you, John.
Attachment 5, I think, and I think makes your point, Joe.
Yeah.
And I was looking at that. I tell you, I'm torn between, I understand what you're saying about the affordability. Of course, that's something that is a priority countywide. So that speaks to me, and I understand it. But then, looking at, what, as I mentioned before, what is contiguous and what is joining, and, is it compatible with the general nature of of those neighborhoods? And it just doesn't seem to me that they are at this point in time. But so I've got some mixed emotions. I would still be in favor of giving us a little bit more time, but I don't want to hold up the process regarding your time limitations on the city behalf. But this diagram here kind of makes it look like, to Joe's point, that they're not that close.
Jeez. Yeah, I made a huge mistake. I really did. I thought the site.
Well, I wanted to point that out.
I really did.
Mr. Cannon, I'd make a motion that we do a
You're
public
not
hearing.
too far off, John. You are off on what you were thinking, but just keep in mind, there's over 400 townhome-type apartments and townhomes within 900 foot of this project.
Thank you. Thanks. Joe?
So I'd make a motion that we table this for a public hearing.
Motion.
Is it postpone or table?
Is it table or postpone?
We say table, but it's
Postpone.
Postpone.
Yeah.
For a public hearing?
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Choose that.
Second.
And no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
We have one opposed, so we will put this off for a 2-week period. All right, thank you.
Okay, next is Resolution Number 69-2026. This is to institute a temporary ban on any outdoor burning in Wicomico County, Maryland. And we have Mr. Lorenzo Cropper here, our Director of Emergency Services, to review this request.
One second, Ms. Rowe.
This is the new one that was added late yesterday afternoon, that it is in the brief book, but it's also on your council table.
Okay. 69, 2026.
Yes.
Entertained motion from council to approve Resolution 69, 2026. Second.
Second.
Discussion.
No discussion.
Any questions?
Hope for rain. Pray for rain, right?
Unfortunately, we're going to be waiting a long time for the National Weather Service.
Yeah.
We will not be getting anything significant next week.
Next week. Yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Resolution passes. Thanks, sir.
That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Angie. It is.
Good afternoon, President Cannon, Wicomico County Council. My name is Anjali Chattel, Internal Auditor, and I would like to present Resolution 68-2026, adopting the amended annual audit plan for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026.
Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution Number 68, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion?
So this plan now would have 5 audits and 1 review. There's an addition. It's a Maryland Public Information Act audit. The risk-based reason was due to concerns regarding uniformity and timely production and fees charged. There'll be a change to the purchase card and miscellaneous purchases audit to remove P-card policies review and add travel expenses reviewed. And that's partly due to management indicating that they're changing systems. And then there was a concern regarding travel brought to my attention. And then the plan removes 5 audits. The debts and accounts payable audit, the third-party non-salaried units audit, the overtime audit, the WEX fuel card audit, and then the cash controls audit, just for solid waste. And the reason was due to time constraints.
I'm assuming you feel comfortable that with the revisions that you can address the full scope of what you have left to do.
Yeah, so I'll send the entrances before the end of fiscal year end. They will not be completed by the end of fiscal year 26, but they will all have hopefully been started by the end of fiscal year 26. And then the plan is to move most of them to fiscal year 27, but there may be some adjustments.
Questions? All those in favor of Resolution 68, 2026, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, resolution passes.
Thank you. The next item I'd like to discuss have a discussion on the roads division audit of fuel, DEF, and other roads inventory. All right, so in the public brief book, there's the management response, management views. There's a fourth section titled Management Views on Conduct of this Audit. The fourth section of management's response appears to be upset that the IA did not consult with the Department of Finance during the audit when they felt the IA should have done so and on her own initiative. There's also concerns about when the IA sent the reports. Before we continue on the discussion, though, I invited, in good faith, the people listed in the agenda to discuss and to clarify who should be included in the report and potential future audits. However, the executive, there were several email dialogues, as you all are aware, but then for the public record, in an executive email dated April 20th, it states, among other things, the executive branch will not participate in this work session. There's more in that email, two sentences, though. One of them ends, "This is more appropriately handled as a personnel matter and should be addressed in a closed and appropriate setting, not through a public work session. Proceeding in a public forum under these circumstances is neither constructive nor appropriate. However, this if this is now a personnel matter, this is a personnel matter that was in the management response, which is supposed to be in the public audit report, right? So that now there's this question about, does this need to be redacted because she's now claiming this is a personnel matter? Should this be in closed session instead? Further discussion. And so I don't know if that needs to be addressed now before we continue.
I don't think it needs to be, it's not a personnel matter at all.
I don't think so either.
Matter of fact, you can't even do a closed session unless it is a personnel matter. And the degree of information that you have and what you're sharing with the council is volumes beyond just a personnel matter and cannot be expressed in a closed session, discussed in a closed session. So I don't know where that comes from. There was also a quote from the executive saying that Section 314 prohibited the county from interfering with departments, but you can't selectively choose sections of the charter that you want to maybe validate your argument with. We have Section 402C that requires the executive to supply the county council with whatever information and that they request, which would include having people at this meeting. It goes even further that you have Section 906 that feels so strongly that the council has this authority that the county, in a certain instance, has subpoena power if we choose to do so. I don't think we need to get into such ridiculous circumstances and worry more about policy than just trying to get the problem solved. So, this was on here. The executive has chosen not to allow the department heads to show up at a county council meeting, which in my opinion is a really serious violation. We had the same problem with the prior executive a few years back, and it does nothing but cause controversy, and it isn't productive at all. But it is the way it is right now. I don't think the council has any intention of wanting to subpoena anybody. We shouldn't have to go to that level. But I think it is important to understand that the work that you are doing is important, and no matter whether the administration agrees or disagrees, the bottom line is that we are trying to resolve the issue on behalf of the executive branch and the county council and the government and the citizens of Wicomico County as a whole. Anytime an internal auditor is involved in a process, it isn't a means by which to attack that individual. It's a means to try to create a dialogue with that individual to see what the concerns are, if there's any miscommunications or missteps on the part of anyone, to correct it. And I think there were a couple of issues, one issue in particular where there was a slight misstep on in a way that you had evaluated some discussions. What was it? I believe it was a matter of, I think they said there was a time issue. They said that the inventory tracked in the ERP system and reported on the county's financial statements consists primarily of construction materials such as stone and other consumables used for road maintenance. and that this risk is mitigated by a year-end reconciliation and audit by the external auditors. I don't think it's your responsibility to have to know how everything works in the full process. You just bring that to their attention, and a management response isn't one to critique you or to criticize you. It's just simply to say, we need to give you this clarification. Outside of that, I think that, your report was fair and honest, and I do not think that that it's the responsibility of anyone in finance, though they should be informed if you feel that's necessary, and if you don't recognize that finance should be informed, it's the administration's responsibility to ask finance to talk to you about that type of circumstance or vice versa.
I agree. There was a lot there. I just want to, the inventory and reconciliations part where they disagree, they did not raise that with me, that disagreement at the exit conference. Otherwise, I would have added more links and such. For instance, there's a federal, State of Illinois Department of Transportation had an audit with the schedule of findings. And in commodities, okay, so this is the Department of Transportation, and it's about commodities, not just these more capital type fixtures. And it specifically says failure to maintain accurate commodities records could result in a loss of misappropriated items. So it is not just about the financial records. There's the loss of misappropriated items. And misappropriated items could mean items that were not able to be used to maintain safe roads. So I still stand by that there's other, I have a federal article about serviceability and readiness. And, if you don't have an asset, whether it's the asset that's the large asset that's going to go out and maintain that road, or the smaller item that's going to be to maintain the larger asset that's going to go out there, or the supplies that are going to be needed by that larger equipment to maintain that larger asset, yeah, I think that it's starting to split hairs.
Right, and I think there's some, Joe, go ahead.
Oh. So being you don't have anybody sitting next to you at the table, let's pretend you do. What would be some of the questions you would ask them today?
So at the time, the question would have been, who am I supposed to CC on these audits? Because at the, I sent you've seen the email where I articulate various points of time where I sent drafts or where I had conversations, such as the first draft, where I was never told to include finance as one of the CC'd department. I have the exit conference where nobody ever said to include finance in those CCs. Like there were multiple points. I even asked.
Have you ever included finance before in any of your?
Yeah, sure. When I'm auditing something that the finance department was involved in.
Okay, all right.
This literally was a roads audit. It's a roads division audit. It was not something where the entrance was with finance, right? So, and I would have been happy to include finance, if I was actually told that, yes, to do it. Instead, there was silence. I do have, having said that though, since all this started, I did receive an email from the Deputy Finance Director, and it's a bit lengthy, but it goes into what they are asking for me to do now. Is it okay if I read this into the record? Okay, thank you. All right. And this, it's dated.
Can you paraphrase it? By chance?
Yeah. I'll skip over a lot of the entry stuff. Deputy Finance Director now. I would like to attend all opening conferences and exit conferences. I would like to be copied on any requests for information from the executive branch. I would like to be copied on all draft and final reports. I do not intend to be involved in actual interviews with employees. I do not require to be present when testing. I will be involved with all audit responses. And then he listed a whole bunch of things that he wanted from me, which I've since sent to him.
Okay. So
I think it's the responsibility of you as required and it's been established through your processes that are established. I believe we voted on your processes and approved your full process of how you conduct your internal auditing. That you can share whatever you want with the executive branch. You're under no directive to share it with a department head, a director, or a deputy director under any circumstances. And the administration has full privileges to share it with whomever they choose. But the mandate, the edict, is not on you.
sometimes I think you just run into a brick wall. When you're
I try to do things as a courtesy, and then this happens.
It backfires on you. When you do it. Would that be the only question you would ask if somebody was sitting at the table?
I guess at this point, I feel like that was, for this audit, you know, who am I supposed to CC? We now know I'm going to CC the finance director and the deputy finance director. Going forward, I will on all audits, and hopefully this will not be an issue going forward. So one other small technicality with this report, this response, I should say, is regarding the timeliness. So the county code says that the audit office shall respond in writing within 30 days after receipt of the final draft. And then another section says that if the auditee provides a response within 30 days, the county internal auditor shall include the full text of the auditee's response. I sent the updated final draft on March 9th. And then the response was received 31 days later on April 9th from the Deputy Finance Director, not from Roads or the Public Works Department. But then the Acting Director of Public Works confirmed it on the 32nd day. So I feel like I would just include it just as a matter of courtesy. Again, I try to be courteous. It wasn't exactly 30 days, but to just include it in the report, and unless you feel otherwise, that it should be like an exhibit instead of in the report because it's late. So.
Leave it up to your discretion.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's somewhat ironic, and there's, there are some discrepancies on taxed and non-taxed diesel fuel. It wasn't a large amount.
Mm-hmm.
But the irony of this whole thing is that it's in Public Works where we had the absolute greatest theft of county merchandise ever. It was about $250,000, and it was in Public Works.
And just to clarify, the wasn't a small amount. That's only on the section that I tested. So there could be more, but for what I tested, that's what it was. So I'm going to have discretion on who to CC, but I will, as a courtesy now, include finance. And then discretion on the report. The fourth section, does that need to be redacted, or should I ask the county attorney? Because now she's raised that personnel issue.
Excuse me?
If the fourth section needs to be redacted as a personnel matter. Yeah. 'Cause she sent the email yesterday or today, April 20th, I think.
It's not a personnel matter when the...
Yeah. Okay. All right, so it won't be redacted. And then the internal auditor's memo, should that be an exhibit in the resolution or no? Or in the audit report or?
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay. The thought was, I talked to all the audit committee, or not all, but most of the audit committee members, and they felt being in a resolution item is fine, but as a part of the report, it might be a little bit too much. So just having it as part of the resolution. So it's still a public record, just not in the report. But it's up to you guys if you have a thought on that.
Keep it in the resolution.
Okay. All right. Are you okay with that? Okay. All right. That's it. Thank you for your time.
That's sort of maybe unusual. Do you feel it's necessary to respond to the management's view? Normally you don't do that. Normally the management is the end of it. Do you think there's any necessity whatsoever to respond to that? We're obviously way out of the...
Yeah, so the standards require that we have a mechanism for the internal auditor to respond when there is a disagreement. So we are supposed to have a method, and I think using the resolution method rather than it just being like one more attachment, because then it could be one more in the report. So,
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? No? All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Angie.
Thank you.
All right.
This time we open the floor for public comments. If you have any comments you'd like to make, come to the podium. Please state your name, your county of residence, and your concerns.
Good afternoon. Joe White, District 5, east side of Wicomico County. One exciting thing I saw today, and it was during the presentation of the budget, and I know you've just gotten it in your hands, but to list that the tax rate is going to decrease down to 77 cents. What an exciting thing for Wicomico County, We're one of the few counties that get to appreciate having a property tax cap. However, we have to nurture this. We even have folks in this community who would like to see this gotten rid of. That would be a shame. Imagine you're 65 years old, you've lived here, you've worked here your whole life, you finally retired. The state of Maryland is now increasing your property value assessment, and your own county government is basically forcing you to move. This is not what we want for our community. We must protect this. We need to look around at our partners. Let's look at the state of Maryland, and let's look at the city of Salsbury, both of who are going through very tough financial times. State of Maryland, as Delegate Chris Adams just stated, is looking at a $5 billion shortfall next year, and the city of Salsbury is in the process of dissolving their collective bargaining agreement, which would actually have a huge impact on our own county, as State's Attorney Jamie Dykes stated at last Monday, April 13th meeting, because the city of Salisbury Fire Department, or Police Department, is a partner in our crime management in this county. Businesses are struggling right now with increases with supplies and fuel and labor, and also stated as a delegation. One of the key aspects of the property tax cap is the personal property rate going down. And a lot of folks don't know this exists. I do as a business owner. When you have equipment in a restaurant, whether you own that property or not, you still pay property tax. So if you're looking to buy a pizza, the cost of the property tax is baked in there. I also heard that our budget is proposed to go up over 10%, and yet pay increases at 5%. This is the problem with government. Its expenses go up faster than the benefits it can offer you. I was once stated that avoiding future financial obligations, like pigeonholing yourself into having to pay for something generations later, could be the downfall. Look around. The state of Maryland, city of Salisbury is dealing with that. Be careful during this budget season. We need to look at this very carefully.
Mr. White.
Good afternoon. My name is Monica Brooks, Wicomico County resident and president in Wicomico County NAACP. I did want to just say a quick message regarding that, what the internal auditor said. I think it's very disappointing to hear that the auditor who's doing their job is being blocked in a way from getting to the bottom of what has happened. Just to hear a minimum of $250,000 went somewhere, we don't know where, skipping to the woods, but that anything would be hindering her from getting to the bottom of that, and that information from being shared is the information we need to know. This money comes from our tax dollars, and I think it should be shared with the public. I also wanted to just a couple things. Our Eastern Shore delegation has gone, but I did want to say that it is important for us to be on one page for when we take information from here, the bills, the legislation that we come up with or we agree on here, and that we do agree on it here before when it goes up there. That the fact that even that liquor bill, the community at large does not want it, but yet we put it there anyway, just to have to do a lot of back and forth on that. I also want to say that to constantly hear, we're outnumbered, like, what does that mean? Once you're elected in office, no matter what your party affiliation is, that you are responsible for all of the citizens in that area. So to keep saying, well, we're outnumbered over there. Well, what are you talking about? You're talking about party as opposed to just talking about collaboration, which I appreciated some of the comments that were made. I think it was Adams and someone else about, collaborating on bills. That's the kind of leadership that we want to see. And I'm glad it's an election year because some things do need to change because some people are still not connecting to what's going on in real people's lives. Those comments that Joe was saying, I concur about that increase, that 10% increase, and I'm listening to the numbers and how that's affecting the people and their rates that they're getting. People are struggling. They have eggs, $12 for a dozen eggs I've seen in the store. Yes, ridiculous pricing on certain things depending on where you go. It has gone up and down and up and down, and people are struggling. And so we really want to make sure that we're looking in a way to benefit everyone as opposed to the expenses going up and up. And hearing from what we're hearing from the audit, maybe some of these expenses are not necessarily warranted. So we really want to make sure that we're taking a good look at what that does for our county. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks.
Mike Goldberg, Wicomico. Last week, the engineering manager, Heather Langford, threatened my life with a lawsuit on the executive's personal Facebook page. It should be noted that Ms. Giordano continues to use her personal Facebook page for county business while deleting comments and blocking users in direct violation of the Supreme Court's Linkey versus Freed decision. As you know, about a year and a half ago, Ms. Langford falsely accused me of assault. The video record proved indisputably that no assault occurred, and Langford then withdrew her petition for a peace order. The state's attorney subsequently charged her with making a false statement to a police officer. At her trial, Langford admitted that the alleged assault did not occur. My wife recently revealed these facts on Facebook, and Langford then threatened her with a lawsuit for slander. But there was no slander. The facts are the facts, as my wife presented them, and they are memorialized in the court records. Y'all have been provided with screenshots of Miss Langford's threat, which was somehow quickly deleted from Facebook. It's untenable that this county employee continues to threaten, harass, and intimidate citizens in an apparent effort to silence them from speaking the truth, and that the executive continues to use county employees as part of her political machinery while also continuously violating the Linkey versus Freed decision. I therefore respectfully request that this council take all appropriate corrective measures against Ms. Langford for her apparent civil rights violation. Her behavior must not go unanswered. Switching gears, I understand that at the next council meeting, a vote will be held to reconfirm Adam Corey as Department of Public Works acting director for 90 days. I oppose his reconfirmation. How is it that after more than 3 years into County Executive Giordano's term, the director position remains vacant? Over the past year or so, 2 registered professional engineers had accepted the job, but both were gone after just a few weeks. If it's happened once, it's a coincidence, but when it happens twice, obviously something is amiss. Mr. Corey is not qualified to serve as DPW director because he is not a registered professional engineer, and frankly, I must question his job performance in several areas. For instance, construction of Cell 7 at the landfill was to commence last October, but has only just now begun. The administration's absurd solution for the late start was to close the landfill several days a week, which resolved nothing. Department of Public Works failed to remove stockpiled dredge spoils from Sharps Point on time, thus significantly delaying the next dredging project upon which commerce in Wicomico County depends. Mr. Corey even wanted to fill the ponds at the prospective Connolly Mill Park with dredge spoil as an expedient means of solving a problem that the administration long ignored, while misleading the public that this would somehow be beneficial for the environment. Most recently, Mr. Corey and the Giordano administration supported establishment of a biorefinery on St. Luke's Road. Much secrecy surrounded this project, and this council was kept in the dark as usual. But Mr. Corey and Ms. Giordano were committed to moving forward despite the fact that the selected site was in an agricultural residential zone where such industrial activity is prohibited. Was the intent to defy the zoning ordinance, or was this another colossal due diligence failure by the administration? Either way, it's inexcusable. I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was running over. Can't talk fast enough sometimes.
Jim Atkins, Wicomico County District 2. I want to talk about a few things real quick. So, First thing I'd like to ask is that the council get with the election board and the GIS people to get the new councilmatic maps and the address locator more prominent on the website. People that use the website have to search to find these things. It amazes me the number of phone calls that I receive from people wanting to know what district they're in and are they in my district. They can't find it on the website. You're 2 months away from a primary and people don't even know who they're voting for or what district they're in. So if we could get something done about that, it would be a big help. The audit, it's amazing. I always was led to believe if you protested or didn't want an audit to happen, that there was something that you didn't want the public to know about. So can't wait to hear what we're going to find out when it all comes out, because boy, there's something in there, and this has been going on. Let's take it back a year ago with the local management board, and they got a grant for Poplar Hill Correctional Facility that's been closed for 10 years. So keep an eye on it. Auditors keep auditing because there's a lot of stuff going on in this county. And I don't want to hear any executive people come in here and talk about transparency, which is their favorite word, when, as you noticed, all the department heads have been informed they are not to participate in any of this information. I want to take real quick and jump on something Mr. Goldberg just said about Deputy Director Adam Corey. It's my understanding in looking at the calendar that you folks don't have another meeting before his 90-day temporary status expires. Don't get into another Matt Weitzel situation. Handle this before the time comes up so we don't waste more county money and somebody gets appointed to a job they're not qualified for, and then you have to go to court to get rid of them. And the last thing real quick, I want to thank you for the vote on the roof for the Westside Community Center. And good things happen when good things happen. Last night, the Westside Neighborhood Alliance met with Warwick. Warwick is 100% committed to holding and maintaining adult GED classes at that community center for that community, as long as they can get a minimum of 5 participants. So Warwick has brought in. So it's a good community, good things happening. Thank you.
Dragons. Any other public comments? Seeing none, council comments. Joe?
Well, we got the budget today, and they're saying we can drop the tax rate 3 cents. I bet if we looked at it real hard, we could get a couple more pennies out of it. But that doesn't mean anybody's taxes are going to go down because of the assessments. But it'll help for sure. The internal auditor situation is sad to think that anytime, for some people that might not even have been alive when it happened, about 20 years ago, 19 years ago, we had a large theft out at the landfill, which is under the Public Works umbrella. And the auditor that did the fraud auditor that did the investigation suggested that we do have an internal auditor, which Wicomico County had never had. So we hired one, and it's been a struggle ever since. And the struggle has come from the executive side of this government. This internal auditor has, by our charter, the rights to look at anything that's spent in Wicomico County, anything that's bought, and any operations that go on. But unfortunately, every time they attempt to do that, roadblocks are thrown up, accusations are made. It's a simple process. Do an audit, reveal your findings, and then the council can take action if they need to, or if you have to do a further audit or an investigation, you could do that. But it seems as though that the last couple executives that we have does not want to go down that path. So anyway, we'll keep working on it. That's all I have for today. Thank you.
Seeing none, don't have any presidential comments. I would entertain a motion to adjourn from legislative session to go into open work session, followed by a closed work session pursuant to the local government article section 3-305B1 to discuss a personnel matter pertaining to the Wicomico Nursing Home Administrator to protect the privacy of personal discussions.
So move.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
John, you did that in one breath.
I want to continue with.
It'll be quick. It'll be quick.
And that is with the Maryland's Prescription Drug Affordability Board. Yes.
Not Vinny clearly, but I am here on his behalf.
See you. Presentation on the laptop. Did you want
I
to
don't
use
think
that?
that's totally
You don't need that?
necessary, but I think, so thank you, Mr. President and council members or commissioners for allowing me to be here today. My name is Catherine Kirk Robbins. I work at Maryland Healthcare for All. We're a consumer health advocacy organization that works to ensure that all Marylanders have access to quality, affordable health care. And for the past decade or so, we've really been focused on prescription drug affordability. So today, I'm happy to be here because I come bearing good news and with no ask for you. So it's really probably going to be a popular presentation. But we know that prescription drugs are hurting Marylanders across the state. So recent polling shows that 70% of Marylanders indicate that they're concerned with the cost of prescription drugs. And even more than that, people are hurt beyond the pharmacy counter. So it's a major driver of our insurance premiums, and it's a huge strain on state and local budgets. So when we started looking at this issue back in 2017, what we decided to pursue at the state level is the creation of a prescription drug affordability board. This keeps getting off.
The further away you stay, the better.
Oh, okay, good.
It's like that, yeah, it's better.
You don't want me to do,
Right.
okay. So a prescription drug affordability board, we passed the first one in the nation in 2019. It's an independent state entity with the authority to look at high-cost drugs and set fair, affordable rates for Marylanders to pay, much like we have an insurance commission and utility commission that's looking at that. When it passed in 2019, it was sort of a phase-in approach. So the board was tasked with looking at these high-cost drugs and setting what we call upper payment limits for state and local governments. And it's been several years in the making. This was, again, first in the nation, but I'm really happy to announce that 2 weeks ago, the Prescription Drug Affordability Board set the first upper payment limit on Jardiance, which is a type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease management drug. So they set an upper payment limit that mirrors the Medicare maximum fair price that was set federally, and it will go into effect very likely January 1, 2027, because at the state and local government level, it's done through PBM contracting. That is estimated to save state and local governments annually $320,000. When that upper payment limit authority is expanded statewide, which is 1 year after these state and local government ones go into effect, that is estimated to save the state between $9 and $16 million. So that would mean all patients are able to benefit from that. At this past meeting, they did not set an upper payment limit for Ozempic, but they are in the works, and our estimates show that it would be roughly $5.8 million in annual savings for state and local governments, and somewhere between $116 and $164 million a year for statewide. As I'm sure you're aware, Ozempic and the GLP-1s are major drivers of healthcare spending. So the other thing that we saw in polling was that very few people are aware of the Prescription Drug Affordability Board. It's about 20% of Marylanders. And so we've been going around the state to city and county councils, just trying to spread the word, both so that you all can reach out and collaborate with the Prescription Drug Affordability Board if you're hearing from constituents about a certain drug that's causing an issue, but also so that you have a tool that you can tell your constituents about. So the best way to access, and normally I am joined by the Prescription Drug Affordability Board's Executive Director, Andrew York. They send their apologies for not having a staff availability today. So I'm a sorry substitute, but I do share their contact information. It's support.pdab@maryland.gov. And not only are they interested in hearing from patients and county leaders about which drugs that they should pursue, but they also have essentially a navigation program where they can help your constituents who might have a specific issue with a certain drug find the best way to afford that prescription drug, and whether that's through their own mechanisms or just through the sort of services that they are aware of. They encourage everyone to do that. So that is my very short spiel. I'm very open to questions, and if there's anything that I glossed over a little too quickly, please feel free to let me know.
Just, I guess, what's the process for going forward for looking at new drugs, and how do you take in opinion from that? I know this is part of your outreach, I guess, or trying to get more folks aware, but yeah, how do we set a path forward where these drugs that are especially the most out of reach, how's the affordability board going through that process?
That's a great question. So right now, the first 4 drugs that they've looked at have all been drugs that were selected by CMS for Medicare maximum fair price negotiations, but that is not a limit to their scope. So they are continually taking in feedback from patients. They've been working with HR departments in various councils to get that feedback. So there isn't a direct, weight like that will indicate which drug they pursue or not. The board votes on it, but they're very open to input if you're hearing from constituents or as a county, if you know that the health plan is really struggling with a certain drug. That is, again, support.pdab@maryland.gov, and that email is an open box, but certainly as a commissioner, I'm sure that they would directly work with you all to sort of figure out how that feedback can be pursued to make sure that their work is the most impactful.
So you primarily get your input from the public as a whole, or is it?
So in this first stage, they were looking at the threshold is very broad. So they're allowed to look at any drug that enters the market over $30,000 a year. And there is not a new drug that's come to market under $100,000 a year in the past, decade or so. Or if it has a certain price increase. So they take a variety of things and look at that. And so what they really focused on in this first stage, again, I'm not the board, so I can't speak entirely to their thinking here, but they looked at anti-diabetics, which are the single biggest expenditure for state and local government health plans. But they hear regularly from patients saying, we'd like you to pursue this next, or consider this as for a UPL as well. And part of the work that they're doing is to address these costs for state and local governments, since we know that it's a major driver. In Anne Arundel County, they say that they spend over twice for the prescription drug benefits for state employees and retirees than they do on their entire library system. So it's not a small number. But they will expand these statewide. And so after that, the scope becomes even broader, and that input is even more important as we're looking for real Marylanders who are willing to share what they're struggling with.
Say, look into Eliquis.
Yes. So we are one of, that's a good, that we've heard that one a lot in our work. We were the first state to pass a prescription drug affordability board, but There have since been 3 others that have established boards with full statewide upper payment limit authority. And Colorado has recently set an upper payment limit on Eliquis. So I'm sure the boards are sort of,
$600, $668.
yeah, prescription drug pricing is egregious, especially when you consider every drug that came to market between 2010 and 2020 had origins in publicly funded research. We pay 10 times more on Jardiance, 12 times more on Jardiance than other comparable nations. So it's definitely important that we use these tools.
Appreciate you taking time to be here very much.
I have got the long stick, and I get to do the Eastern Shore one, so it's been a beautiful drive every time I've made it out. So I appreciate you guys having me.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
The motion to adjourn to go in closed session.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?